You're listening to the Plain Talking UK podcast, the UK-based podcast written by a passenger for anyone. And here are your hosts, Carl Stebbings and Matt Smith.
Well, hello and welcome to episode number 163 of the Plain Talking UK podcast. I'm Carl Stebbings, and joining me in the kitchen studio tonight, although he is a little bit under the weather, is my co-host Matt Smith.
Hello. Yes, no, I am here. I'm just here. I'm here. It's fine.
Now Matt's going to be taking a kind of a producery kind of role this evening, as he normally does anyway. But he's going to be taking like a 99.99% producing role tonight. But we have got with a wonderful harp jet legend that is Eoin with us on the show tonight. So hello, Eoin.
Hey guys. How are things?
We've dragged him off the 737-800 and he's here with us now. So thanks for joining us, Eoin.
Thank you for having me again.
So been flying anywhere nice this week, Eoin? Have you been on holiday?
Today we had a rather interesting double Denmark. So we flew to Billund and back, and then to Aarhus, I think is how you pronounce it, and back. Yeah. Oh. So they're both fairly near to each other, but yeah.
Yeah, sounds very nice indeed. The weather's been really nice. We had some rather nice sunshine, which has been quite good. So we've got a full chat room as always. We've got Airshow World, Jeff's in there.
Dr.
Jeff, and Captain Steph. We've actually got Dr. Steph in the chat room as well. Lane Street, Liz Piper, Mariana, Mile is in the chat room, Neville's in the chat room. Rick Bell, our host for next week at Pittsburgh, which is nearly here, is also in the chat room. We had, I think, Adrian Meacham's in the chat room as well. And there are. I mean, the participants thing doesn't work very well on this YouTube thing because it doesn't always tell who's in here. But hello to everyone who's joined us in the chat room. So it is the 5th of May, and well, it's going to be a good show. We've got a slightly shorter news segment for this week because we've got a guest on the show. Well, we better crack on, I suppose.
We had, yeah, absolutely.
So, are you good to go, Eoin? You got the news stories in front of you. Good. So we are going to start the show then, as we do each week, with our rundown of the weekly news from around the world and the UK. So, if you're ready, Eoin.
Yep, I'm ready here.
Hit it, Matt. So, kicking off this week's first news story, and it's on the wonderful paper here in the UK called The Sun. So, thesun.co.uk then, and the headline, Protect Your Holiday, How to Protect Yourself from an Airline Going Bust as Italy's Alitalia Goes into Administration. Well, I didn't know that till I read this, you know. That's a shame. So travellers who brought flights directly from Alitalia aren't protected because the airline is not a member of ATOL. Italy's flagship carrier Alitalia went into administration this week, but the airline confirmed that it will continue running flights for the next 6 months. The airline operates around 12 flights a day from the UK to Italy, and British holidaymakers who have already booked a flight with the airline will not be impacted if their flight is within the next 6 months, with all flight bookings honoured. A spokesperson for the UK travel body ABTA said Alitalia will continue to honour bookings for the next 6 months while it looks for a new refinancing package to keep it in business. That means that the administration will only affect those who have flights booked in 7 months' time or later, in which case protection will depend on how you brought the flights. So, how to protect yourself if an airline goes bust. So, by law, every UK travel company which sells air holidays and flights is required to hold an Air Travel Organisers Licence, or ATOL. If a firm has an ATOL and ceases trading, the scheme protects customers by flying them home or refunding them the cash. Those who brought flights directly from Alitalia aren't protected because the airline is not a member of ATOL, and because it is based outside the UK, it doesn't have to be. But there are other ways you can protect yourself from an airline going bust. If you pay by credit card and something goes wrong, you'll be protected under the Consumer Credit Act as long as you spend more than £100 and less than £30,000. Blimey, that would be an expensive flight.
That would be a very expensive flight.
£30,000.
Absolutely. Well, maybe business class.
I know. So if you pay by debit card, there's no legal protection, but some banks will refund you under the chargeback scheme. There's no minimum spend, and you've got 120 days to make your claim through the bank. And if you're a PayPal user, then you should be covered by its buyer protection scheme, but you must claim within 180 days of paying. So in March, thousands of British holidaymakers had their holidays cancelled after Diamond short break holidays went bust. The Leicestershire-based tour operator sold holidays to destinations around the UK and other European locations. Luckily, around 16,000 holidaymakers who had booked non-flight based package holidays with the firm were financially protected through ABTA. So that's a few things. I mean, I didn't realise. I knew Alitalia were in trouble, but I didn't realise they were in that amount of trouble. Did you know about that, Eoin? Or?
Yeah, it's gotten to a really dire situation now, and definitely when we're working on board, a lot of our cabin crew are Italian as well, and they're kind of taking a look at friends back home and seeing them in a lot of fear that they might lose their jobs very, very soon.
I think it's a shame when a large country's major airline has trouble.
It is their main.
Like we have BA.
It's their flag carrier.
Yeah, it's their flag. Exactly. They're their flag carrier. It's unfortunate, but let's hope things turn out good for them anyway. So moving on to the next story, Eoin, and it's a story just for you.
All right, this is from insidermedia.com, and it's all about Ryanair. Ryanair enjoys huge passenger increase, it says. And it says Ryanair has posted a huge rise in passenger numbers. The Dublin headquartered airline carried 11.3 million customers during April, up from the 9.9 during the same month last year. The company's load factor, the number of passengers against the number of seats available, was also up from 93% to 96%. In March, Ryanair called on the UK government to put aviation at the forefront of the negotiations with the EU or risk losing flights to and from the continent. With the UK set to leave Europe's open sky system, the company believes a bilateral agreement will have to be negotiated with the EU to allow flights to continue. Ryanair has also already pivoted growth away from the UK to other EU airports, cutting its growth rate in the former from 15% to 6% this year. So I suppose there's a kind of a mixed story there, especially for people in the UK, because, well, I suppose Ryanair have carried more people this year, and that they're also not growing as fast as they were in sort of anticipation as to what's going to happen with Brexit.
Well, I think that's a big factor, isn't it? It's all about issues with regard to Brexit, isn't it? It's just so much uncertainty in the market in general, I think, at the moment.
Well, that's just it. And I think there was a story, it was last week or the week before, where the airlines are now having to schedule these flights for 18 months from now.
Yeah.
And effectively what that means is within the next 6 months, the flights and the tickets and the timetables that are going to be available just after the UK leave the EU are going to be kind of planned in the next 6 months. Yeah. So they have to come to an agreement very soon.
I think it's fair to say that it's going to be 2 years before we actually leave, if you see what I mean. So I mean,
the ball has only just started running now. So
but the planning process for an airline takes a huge amount of time. So those seats that are going to be available in 2 years' time are going to be planned within the next sort of 6 to 8 months. So that's the sort of time frame that the airlines have.
I'm also very, very pleased in the fact that, in a time when we're having lots of elections and things, we managed to get a mention of Brexit in, because I mean that's never mentioned these days. It's never in the news or anything.
Did you say Brexit?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Oh, okay.
I think at this stage Brexit needs its own sound clip.
Yeah, that was. Yeah, well, we have obviously got the sound clip for Matt, haven't we, Owen? Thanks to you.
Yeah,
we all know what that one is. But no, you've only got to look at Flight Radar 24 to see just how many Ryanair flights are in the air at any one time. I should imagine
they have something like 380 aircraft at the moment, which is absolute insane amount of aircraft.
It is frightening, isn't
it?
And there is something nice about somebody with a nice Irish accent reading a Ryanair story. I don't know what there is about
that. Owen.
So,
well done.
Absolutely.
Well done.
Yeah, it somehow seems like it's come home. Do you know what I mean? It's really nice.
So the next story, moving on to this is the NBCSanDiego.com website. And the headline, Condor, this is for any of our listeners who live in Germany, Condor Airlines launches
Jenny Parkinson's in the
non-stop.
chat room, sorry.
Oh, hello, Jenny.
Hello, Jenny.
Condor Airlines launches non-stop flights from San Diego to Germany. The seasonal service runs through October the 5th, with up to 3 weekly flights from San Diego International Airport straight to Frankfurt. So getting to Germany from San Diego just got easier. Condor Airlines has launched a new non-stop service that takes travellers straight to Frankfurt. On Monday, Condor Airlines celebrated the inauguration of its new seasonal service out of San Diego International Airport, a service that was first announced over a year ago. So the new flight is the airline's first ever non-stop service from San Diego to Germany, and now for the only non-stop connection between San Diego and continental Europe. The service runs through the 5th of October, offering up to 3 weekly flights on Mondays, Thursdays and Saturdays. The San Diego Airport Authority said that, for instance, an outbound flight on Monday leaves San Diego at 8:50 p.m. and arrives in Frankfurt International at 5:40 p.m. the next day. The returning flight on Mondays departs Frankfurt at 2:25 p.m., so just after dinner, and then arrives in San Diego at 6 p.m. So there's a 9-hour time difference between San Diego and Frankfurt. According to Condor Airlines, one-way flights start at $329 in economy class, or $439.99 in premium. Or if you've got a few quid laying around, you can go into business class for that one-way trip for $1,089.99.
Sounds very cheap. Yeah. Absolutely.
So a Monday to Monday itinerary, say from May the 15th to May the 22nd, round trip for one person in economy, for example, will set you back around about $670. So airfare includes complimentary checked baggage, beverages, meals, and complimentary in-flight entertainment, the airline says. The passengers can choose between economy, premium economy, business class on board the aircraft. The aircraft they're using is obviously a quality aircraft, the Boeing 767-300ER, and flights can be booked on Condor's website or by calling the airline itself. So there we go. For anyone who's living in Germany and wants to take a trip to San Diego, you can get there non-stop now.
Wow, sounds good.
So moving on to the next story, this one is for you, Owen.
So this is from
He likes this one.
www.fool.com.
Oh, you fool.
It's the Motley Fool. It's the Motley Fool.
Oh, man. This says Boeing's Dreamliner gets a solid win with a WestJet order. WestJet plans to order 10 Boeing 787-9s with options for another 10. It says Boeing entered 2017 with a very cautious outlook for aircraft orders, but so far it's running well ahead of last year's pace. As usual, the 737 is driving the bulk of the Boeing's order activity. Yeah, go 737s. However, the 787 Dreamliner family is also off to a solid start. On Tuesday morning, the Dreamliner bagged another important win as Canadian low-cost carrier WestJet announced a firm order for 10 787-9s, along with another 10 options.
Yay!
Firm orders have been in short supply. Boeing's Dreamliner program secured the bulk of its firm orders between 2004 and 2008. Wow, that's well over 10 years ago. Well before the type's entry into service. The launch of the larger 787-10 variant in 2013 spurred a brief uptick in sales activity, with 182 net orders for the 787 family that year. However, the Dreamliner orders have trailed deliveries since then. From 2014 to 2016, Boeing averaged fewer than 60 net firm orders per year for the 787 family, and by contrast, it's currently building 12 787s per month. Boeing's backlog of 672 firm orders for the 787 serves as a buffer for now, but unless order activity accelerates, it will eventually lead to cut production. For Boeing to increase production to 14 per month as planned, it would need even more orders to come in. Through the first months of 2017, Boeing has received just 13 firm orders for the 787 family. However, that figure excludes Boeing's two biggest Dreamliner deals of the year, as they have not yet been finalized. Oh, it'll be interesting. It does say. Two solid Dreamliner commitments. The first of these order commitments came from Singapore Airlines in February. The Asian carrier, which previously ordered 30 Dreamliner 787-10s, plans to buy another 19 of the same aircraft in order to modernize and expand its fleet. Singapore Airlines has also options to purchase 6 more 787-10s. This week, WestJet gave the Dreamliner its second biggest order commitment of the year, agreeing to buy 10 787-9s with another option for another 10. Deliveries of the first 10 planes are scheduled to run from 2019 to 2021. WestJet plans to use the 787s to expand its nascent. I've never come across that word. It's nascent into international. I
think it should say descent.
Yeah, I think that's
it's
a typo.
ascent into international service.
Possibly, yeah. I think that it's descent or ascent, isn't it?
I
think it's a
full
typo.
website.
Either way, it's been done wrong, isn't it?
And to expand into its international service. The company noted that the Dreamliner's long range would allow it to expand into Asia, Latin America, and deeper into Europe. Additionally, the 787-9s are eventually likely to replace the 4 Boeing 767s that WestJet is currently using for flights to London and Hawaii. Those planes are nearly 25 years old on average and probably need to be retired a few years down the road. Including the Singapore Airlines and the WestJet order commitments, Boeing has captured 42 Dreamliner orders this year. That's a solid start to the year, considering that the orders tend to concentrate around the top air show of the year. The Paris Air Show takes place next month, and New Year end.
Indeed. Well, I mean, that's it's an odd website to be carrying such a genuinely quite interesting story. Really,
exactly. I know.
I was a bit nervous when I saw it come up, and it said, the Motley Fool, and I'm just thinking, have you been to one of these terrible joke sites again? And it's going to be some horrific story.
But no, it sounds absolutely fantastic. WestJet are an amazing low-cost company.
They run that
Canada.
really good Christmas ad every year. WestJet.
Oh, they do, don't they?
That was.
And they also
so
do
good.
some very good April Fool's jokes as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
Look them up.
YouTube them. Yeah, you'll see
exactly.
them there.
Right, fair enough.
So next story, moving on, we've obviously had some good news for Boeing, so we've got to even it up a little bit, especially for Captain Nick, 'cause otherwise he'll cry.
He'll write to us.
So we've got this is on the Aerospace Manufacturing and Design.com. Wow, that's one big website.
That's quite a website, yes.
So the headline: Airbus adds 20 A350 orders to reports the first quarter offered of this year. No surprises whatsoever.
Sorry, just to interrupt briefly. Jennifer has actually said that nascent is actually a word. It means just coming into existence.
Oh, there we go.
I'm very sorry.
There we are.
There we go.
Every day is in fact a school day, isn't it? Yeah.
Well done.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So,
I'm very sorry.
No, I'd never heard of it either, and I thought I was quite good at this English rubbish.
I don't English very well.
Your accent covered up the fact. It was that they're Owen. So don't worry. Everyone just loves listening.
Jeff
to
is very excited that he's having to educate the English in how to.
I know Americans educating the English.
I know it's not right, English. Is it? It's something.
How is Farnborough?
Oh, stop it! Stop it, you bad man.
So anyway, going back to the story. So on the Aerospace Manufacturing and Design.com website.
Okay,
So Cleveland, Ohio, the day before reporting first quarter 2017 results, Airbus officials released the news that China Southern Airlines has signed a purchase agreement for 20 A350-900s, becoming the latest customer for the wide-bodied aircraft. China Southern Airlines now operates one of the largest Airbus fleets in the world, with more than 300 Airbus aircraft in service, the A320s and A330 families, and 5 A380s. With this latest order, Airbus has reached a total of 841 firm orders for the A350 XWB from 45 customers worldwide. In Amsterdam on the April the 27th, Airbus CEO Tom Enders reported first quarter 2017 results and confirmed guidance for the full year. So the total intake totaled $4.2 billion compared to $7.9 billion in the first quarter of 2016 in the order book. The net helicopters rose to 60. So, because obviously Airbus do helicopters as well, with the Super Puma family helicopters and 14 of those H145s as well. And also their revenues increased. 13 A350 XWBs were delivered in the first quarter of 2017. The program is on track to reach the monthly production target of 10 aircraft by the end of 2018, he said. A total of 26 A320neo aircraft were delivered to 14 customers. The first delivery of an A320neo occurred in April. Flight testing of the A319neo is now underway. So there we go. So good news for Airbus there.
In other news, with regard to teaching the English words, the English how to speak words, rather interestingly, Nev has said, and I genuinely think this is going to happen. He said, in 55 years, I've never used that word. Expect extensive and irritating use of it at pits. I think this is going to. I think this particular word is going to become the word of our.
It's just as well we're not flying Qatar Airways.
Oh, don't open that kind of word. Yeah, so
Nascent, ladies and gentlemen, discussion entirely.
Yeah, absolutely. Nascent is going to be the word of our trip to pits. I think it's definitely.
Well, at least we're not flying Acme. Anyway, so
that's very good news for Airbus. And when myself and Matt were down there, we saw a lot of these aircraft. Yeah. I mean, there's a huge amount of A350s all lined up, getting kitted out and getting painted, and it's just an incredible production, isn't it, Matt?
Absolutely incredible. Liz says that Nascent is banned from my car, Nev. So that's it. It's not. Yeah, it's obviously is. It's already.
It's nascent.
Nascent. Oh, sorry, nascent. Oh, I'm being shouted at now by Captain.
Yeah.
Oh no, I'm
Jeff
so
shouting?
Much. Yeah, he is. Either that or his caps lock is stuck on. I'm not sure which one it is. I think he's shouting.
Jeff's shouting.
Absolutely.
Anyway, so
Indeed.
The last.
we're doing an aviation show. I'm so sorry.
Last little news bit for this week's show.
Oh, that's what she said.
And the dailymail.co.uk, and it's not a top 10, but it's a kind of weird list of stuff. But this is the headline on the Mail Online site. This is Cactus Gardens, Oxygen Bars and 40-foot slides, the world's oddest airport attractions revealed.
What?
So if you've got time...
This is very good.
Where
on earth did you manage to
I dragged this one up. I'll tell you what, I found this one. This actually did come out on the 5th of May, so it's fairly new.
It's today.
That's today.
That's today. So the story...
That was 9 o'clock this morning.
Yeah.
The story then, if you've got time to kill at these airports, the minutes are set to whiz by thanks to the weird and wonderful attractions. So you can ride a 40-foot slide at Changi Singapore Airport to find the light at the end of the tunnel, or fritter coins away at the slot machines before boarding a plane in Las Vegas. If you're a beer boffin, the world's only airport brewery in Munich might tempt you in for a tipple. So here we go. So we'll go for one each then. Owen. So the first one of these on the list then, this is the brewery, which is in Munich International Airport. I'm sure Pip's probably been there, I should imagine. So Airbrau at Munich Airport is said to be the only airport brewery in the world crafting beers in compliance with the exacting standards of the Purity Decree of 1516. Drinkers have a range of different ales to choose from, including a lively and fruity cumulus and a naturally cloudy jet stream. Large groups can also indulge in a keg containing 10 litres of beer for long-lasting enjoyment. Oh boy, that sounds like a Jet 2 story all in one. So also brewery tours.
It also sounds like jet fuel, but we'll gloss over that.
So the main attraction is seeing the shiny copper kettles that brew the beer. So, wow, there we go. So, next one, Owen.
This is cool. Well, this one, I want to get my family, because my family are going through Munich later on this year, kind of laying over there for a few hours. So, I'm going to get them to take a few photos of this place.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, absolutely. Send them in when you've got them, definitely.
So, the next one on the list then, Owen, where's this
next one is an oxygen bar at Narita International Airport in Japan.
Now, am I missing a trick here? Isn't oxygen available anywhere?
Yeah, I know. I mean, looking at those prices for 10 minutes,
I'll stick with the free stuff. Thanks.
It's quite pricey. It's 800 yen, or that's $8, or roughly £6.50 for 10 minutes of oxygen.
Right. Okay. What happens if you don't pay the fee? Do they put you in a vacuum tank and that's it? Game over. Yeah.
So this says travelers can breathe easy at Narita International Airport in Japan thanks to an oxygen bar. Instead of alcohol, the health-conscious saloon in Terminal 1 serves up pure O2. Customers can choose from a menu of exotically flavored gas from eucalyptus menthol to cinnamon. Tanks pump out puffs of the good stuff in 10-minute increments. If airport goers are really in need of some fresh air, an hour of reoxygenation should definitely do the trick. I'm trying to read the story without laughing, but
you're doing very well.
I'd actually really, really like to try this. Really? Oh yeah.
Really? Oh, so what did you do? What did you do before your flight?
I breathed some oxygen.
I breathed some oxygen.
Winning
for 30 minutes, and it cost me $20.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I mean, when we were doing training, we were to try on the quick don oxygen masks in the pilots use, in case we ever were in an emergency situation where we were in the cockpit for some reason and we needed to use these.
Right.
But unfortunately, they just pumped out normal air rather than the
expensive stuff.
Expensive,
not laughing gas. Then
yes, laughing gas. No, you don't want laughing gas. That's got like nitrous oxide in it. No.
Well, that's poisonous in certain.
It is in large enough dosage. Laughing gas is
that's
actually,
what happened to Little Shop of Horrors. No,
that's correct. Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
So the next airport on the list is Changi Airport in Singapore, and they have a cactus garden. So for the lovers of cacti, so the cactus garden at Singapore's Changi Airport features more than 100 species of cacti and arid plants from the deserts and dry areas of Asia, Africa and America. Located on the roof of Terminal 1, visitors can stretch out and bask in the sun. There's even a bar with a garden, so you can indulge in a drink or two as you wander around the prickly pears. Okay, I suppose.
It looks quite relaxing. Quite nice, if you're sitting out in the sun watching the airplanes go by, that's a good way to kill time.
So the next one, Owen, is I had a go at this one last year, but the next one,
these are the slot machines at McCarran International Airport, Las Vegas. As soon as you enter Las Vegas,
wait, they have slot machines in Las Vegas? That's a shock. No, okay, just me.
As soon as you enter Las Vegas McCarran International Airport, you are hit by a wave of ringing slot machines. Gamblers can fritter away coins at any time of the day. More than 1,500 dispensers are scattered around the terminals, including the baggage reclaim area. And it said that travelers regularly win six-figure totals, and one lucky player even scooped a $3.9 million payout on the Wheel of Fortune slot.
Do you know that's a great way to start your holiday?
Or to end the holiday.
That's true. Well, no, because the picture
you go to Las Vegas, blow all this money, and then
win it all back.
But the picture that I've got up is actually in baggage reclaim, so it's just exactly. So it's a great way to start your holiday. Absolutely.
Oh man. That's incredible.
It is.
So the next one, this one is again at Changi Airport, Singapore, and this one's a 40-foot slide. So Singapore Changi's airport boasts the world's tallest slide in an airport. didn't know there's any more airport slides. But anyway, in a bid to help passengers enjoy their time before taking off while waiting for family members, the tubular attraction is located in Terminal 3 with snazzy lights illuminating it. Slide at Terminal 3, as it's called, stretches over 4 stories high and speeds travellers from top to bottom at a rate of 19 feet per second.
That's pretty quick.
That's
like
very
that.
quick.
That looks really...
No, that looks
I
horrific.
bet you there's more adults on there than there is
Yeah,
children.
without doubt.
Oh yeah,
absolutely.
That's me all the way.
Oh, yeah.
I gotta get myself to Singapore.
So the next one on the list, Owen.
It's an aquarium at Vancouver International Airport. And I gotta say, this looks absolutely incredible. Vancouver International Airport in Canada is home to 2 giant fish tanks. The exhibits installed by Vancouver Aquarium both house a rich collection of marine life native to British Columbia. Some of the creatures housed there are part of the ongoing research studies. The main aquarium on level 3 of the airport's international terminal is home to 5,000 creatures, including wolf eels, anemones, stripped perch, and orange cup corals. Yeah, wow, that does look a very interesting a very interesting feature that you could stare
That's
at
kind
for quite a while.
of a thing you'd see in Dubai, and every shopping mall
Yeah.
in Dubai, I think, has a huge aquarium in it.
does it?
Yeah, we went in a couple when we were out there a few years back. But yeah, aquariums are. I quite like the aquariums in the buildings that they are in. It looks good. Looks good. The next one on the list. This is a special one for you,
this,
Matt.
I could say this looks more like something that I would be very into,
this one's for Matt when he's travelling.
Yeah.
This one is in Hong Kong International Airport, and they have got their very own IMAX cinema. So the IMAX cinema at Hong Kong International Airport features the largest IMAX screen in Hong Kong. The projection space measures 46 feet high and 74 feet wide.
Oh my goodness!
Wow.
The theatre, which can seat 350 viewers, is located on the entertainment zone. God, they have zones.
Right, yeah.
Of level of Terminal 6 of Terminal 2, or level 6 of Terminal 2, with 2D and 3D movies on offer.
You have no idea how much I would love to go and watch Guardians of the Galaxy, which will now be my 3rd time in that screen. Frankly,
Do you know what, Matt? We'll take a trip to Hong Kong. How about that?
Yeah, why not? What's the worst that could happen there? Yeah.
So moving on to the next one then, Owen, and we're going back to Singapore again, aren't we?
This is my type of a place. This is a rooftop cocktail bar in Singapore Changi Airport. Harry's Bar at Singapore Changi Airport is located on the roof of Terminal 1. Drinkers can order libations in the open air while enjoying the sights and sounds of jets flying by overhead.
Yeah, you two would very much enjoy that, wouldn't you? Yeah, absolutely.
It is open from 6 a.m. to midnight daily with signature tipples, including a vodka-infused Dirty Harry, lychee liqueur-inspired Kill Bill, and a punchy jungle juice.
Ooh. Hello.
They sound very potent.
They do, yes, absolutely.
So in other words, you're going to get drunk again before
Yeah,
you
you're
fly.
going to get hideously drunk.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but you
another
can do
story
it
for Jet 2 then.
airplanes.
At least they don't fly out there, I suppose, yeah.
Now the next one on the list looks absolutely amazing. This one is in Hamad International Airport in Doha in Qatar. There we go. This one is an
Qatar.
Qatar. This one is an indoor swimming pool. So Hamad International Airport in Doha boasts a top-of-the-range spa facility. Amenities include an indoor swimming pool and a hydrotherapy tub.
Oh my goodness.
There is also a gym for travellers to stretch their legs and a squash court. Pip, this one's for you, to sweat it out at. For a spot of relaxation, there are a range of spa treatments on offer, with an anti-jet lag massage being a popular pick. Entry into the airport spa starts at 37 quid.
Oh,
well, there we go. That
seems
that's
quite good
pretty
value.
good.
Absolutely. Yeah,
that swimming pool looks awesome.
It does.
Yeah.
Very much so, yes.
God, we need to go out to all these airports.
Yeah,
anyway,
absolutely.
so the next one on
do.
the list. Another one for you again at Singapore, Owen.
Oh, I love Singapore has become my new favorite airport that I haven't been to.
Yeah.
This is the Butterfly Park at Singapore Changi Airport. Singapore Changi Airport opened a butterfly garden in 2008, and it is the only airport in the world to have such an attraction.
In an airport.
Airport. It boasts more than 1,000 tropical butterflies with 40 different species flying around. The two-story glass-paneled space in Terminal 3 also has lush plants blooming from the borders and a grotto waterfall almost 20 foot high. Visitors can also witness the breeding and feeding of butterflies at close range. A perfect place to escape the hustle and bustle of the main airport. This looks insane. I don't know if you've ever been to butterfly gardens around the UK or in Ireland or wherever, but they are really, really spectacular when you go in and see them. And this actually brings back quite a lot of memories for me, because my first ever flight, the first time I took the controls of an aircraft, so my first flying lesson, I can't remember, was it immediately before or immediately after myself and my family went to one of the big butterfly gardens in Ireland. And do you know what? It's absolutely incredible. Just like seeing these creatures with really, really tiny wings flying around your head when you've been flying yourself in something really, really
Monstrous.
heavy. And
Absolutely.
It's just this, it's incredible.
So, I mean, we've covered some nice airports. There's some nice places to go.
We've got
and
the
now
last
it's
one.
now it's just really time to remind everyone, about mortality. I think that's the best way to describe it.
So
This
basically,
is the one airport on the list that I have actually been to.
Oh, is it?
So,
Yes.
so the
Oh,
last
no.
one, the last one on the list, and the story goes that, and
You
it
remember
goes.
that feeling we had a minute ago where we were all elated and
Yeah.
happy? Right, brace yourselves, everyone.
So the story goes on then for this particular news part here. So, and after killing all of that time, you can go to Brussels Airport and visit a morgue. So it's clearly not an attraction as such, but since we're on the subject of quirky airport facilities, it deserves a mention. Brussels Airport has its own 24/7 mortuary and funeral parlour.
Always good to know.
For dealing with death in transit.
Right.
It opened in 2005 after growing demand for on-site services.
Obviously.
The commuter hub handles hundreds of dead bodies every year, and the directors of the mortuary wanted to provide a way of dealing with the remains in a more respectful way. Staff can speak 7 languages, including Dutch, French, German, English, Spanish, Italian and Arabic. There's also a waiting area and a theatre-style room for services. A statement on the mortuary website reads, "We organise the repatriation of the deceased, regardless of the country where the death occurred or the country of destination, and regardless of the nationality or religion of the deceased. In other words, worldwide." So they've done it for over 30 years, fast, efficient, and in close consultation with the next of kin. So that's an interesting one there.
Yeah,
Now,
so there we are. Moving on.
It would be, I
Everyone's
don't think it would be on my
to-do list.
top
No.
10 list of things to
Well,
do at an
I know
airport.
that most airports do have a morgue. I just don't think that that they have a funeral parlour and also staff on call 24/7. I think that part is rather unusual.
Never's just said in the chat room there, ooh, an AV opportunity. Give them my number, guys. Well, there's the mention of theatre, wasn't it? All this AV. Anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
by
I
the
hope
by,
you enjoyed that shortened news segment this week, but it is obviously because we have got
Yeah,
to
we've got a
guest
very busy show, yeah,
and the
absolutely.
busy show and everything. But so we've got next coming up for you a segment from our pilot Pip.
Indeed, yes.
And this week's segment is all about what Pilot Pip does while he's in the cruise in his Hawker 800, which, well, isn't a lot really, I suppose.
How rude.
I know. So if we're all ready, we're going to sit back and relax, and we'll have this little short segment from Pilot Pip.
Plane safety from the flight deck with Pilot Pip.
Hi everyone, it's Pip here with another segment. I've got a few hours here in my hotel room this morning before I head off down to southern Italy, down to Naples this afternoon on the lovely Amalfi coast. It's always a nice approach into Naples if the weather's good. Some lovely views of Mount Vesuvius, that old volcano which is apparently rumbling back into life. Big old super volcano which will one day in the coming centuries no doubt erupt and cause all sorts of trouble for us. Hopefully not today though. But I was flying around yesterday up in the cruise and I was wondering what on earth I might talk about for this segment on today's show. And then I thought, hang on, I'll talk about what it is I do in the cruise. Which the short answer is, not much. Do the crossword, read a book, look out the window mostly. But actually I jest a little bit. There is a little bit more to it than that. But it can be quite tedious, as you can imagine, sitting there for hours on end. Now for me, the longest flights I do, 4 hours is not rare, 4.5 hours. Occasionally a little bit longer, even 5.5 hours sometimes. Which is a lot for me, but if you're Captain Nick or one of those long haul boys, then that's a positively quick trip. You can imagine sitting up there for 10, 12, 15 hours or even more. It's quite brain numbing, and you need to find something to do to keep you occupied and keep your alertness levels up. But there are a number of things that we're of course required to do. Company rules dictate that we do certain things, and of course common sense and airmanship requires that we monitor various systems. So here's just a little selection of the things we regularly do up in the cruise to keep things ticking along smoothly. So checking the weather would be the first obvious thing. Now of course we check the weather for our destination and our alternates, but it's also a pretty good idea to have a good understanding of what the weather's doing along your route, along some of the airports that you might want to divert into if things go wrong. Now the way I manage this, we have the function within our avionics to select any airport or any anything really, any navaid, any IFR waypoints, any airports, and we can put it into the system and we can create a range ring around that point. So for instance, I might pick an airport, I might pick Frankfurt, and I can create a circle that I can see on my map display, and I can choose the size of that circle. So it might be 10 miles or it could be up to 300 miles. So what I like to do, I'll pick certain airports along the route and I'll put a range circle around them based on the worst case scenario. So if we had a double engine failure, for instance, and we needed to glide to an airport. So if we're up at 40,000 feet, then I'll typically put a 90 or maybe 100-mile circle around that airport, which roughly coincides to the glide distance at that altitude. If we're a little bit lower, then I'll put a smaller circle around it. So I'll choose a number of airports along the route that we might want to divert into. And of course there's a bit of a thought process that goes along with choosing which airports you might go to. If we're out in Russia way, then a lot of the airports there don't speak English, so it's important to try and find the ones that you are going to be most useful, easiest to operate into. So having chosen some airports, you then want to check the weather at those airports. It's no good going barreling into an airport if it's closed with almost zero visibility and fog and snow and all the rest of it. So the more clever aeroplanes out there, you can use your ACARS or some data link system to automatically download the weather. My aeroplane's not quite that clever, so we have to tune in to the ATIS, the Automatic Terminal Information System, I think that stands for, and we'll listen to the weather and write it down. So if the worst does happen, if we get an engine failure or a fire or some sort of depressurization event, we're not wasting time trying to work out which is the best airport to go to. We already know which one's the best one, and we've got the weather for it. We know which runway's in use, and we can just crack on and get in there as quickly as possible. So that's one thing we like to do then, checking weather and having an idea of what's around, what other airports are there. What else do we do up in the cruise? Well, fuel monitoring is obviously a big part of it, as you can imagine. We are required to regularly check the levels of fuel on board and making sure that we've got the required minimums and the required reserves when we get to our destination airports. And as a minimum, what we need to do, we need to check the fuel at the top of climb. So after we've taken off and we've reached our cruise level, we need to check the fuel levels then and compare them to what we expect to have versus the flight plan. We also need to check the fuel levels at the top of descent, so before we start down towards our destination, and at least once every hour en route. Now, if you're only doing a very short flight, an hour, hour and a half, then you might only get those 3 fuel checks in. But on longer routes, you certainly want to keep a close eye on it. So what I tend to do at any major turning points, I'll make a note of how much fuel we've got on board and then compare that to the flight plan. So on the flight plan, we'll have every single IFR waypoint with the fuel we would expect to have at that point based on the starting fuel. So we can write down what we've actually got at that point, and we can see against the flight plan if we're burning the expected amount of fuel, or if we're saving a bit of fuel, or if we're burning a little bit more fuel than we plan to, in which case we might need to do something about it. Perhaps we're going faster than the fuel plan had specified, or maybe we're flying at a low altitude due to some ATC restriction and therefore burning a little bit more fuel. And if that becomes significant, then we'll obviously need to take some action. We'll need to look ahead to see if we're going to have the required legal minimum fuel levels upon arrival at our destination airfield. And again, that's going to be more of a critical exercise for the long-range chaps who are arriving after a long trip with minimum fuel, so they need to look very closely at that. For us on the shorter trips, and especially for me at SafeJets, because as a policy we tend to tank extra fuel, we've generally got more than enough motion lotion, as we call it, to keep us going. But still, common sense airmanship dictates that you're keeping a very close eye on your fuel levels. And of course, more than that, some aircraft types may require you to regularly move fuel around the aircraft to keep the trim and the centre of gravity within specified limits. We have to do that a little bit. The Hawker has 3 fuel tanks, the 2 main wing tanks, and we also have a smaller tank in the back of the aircraft, which doesn't always get used. But if there is fuel in there, it needs to be transferred into the wing tanks before the overall aircraft weight reaches a certain point during the cruise. Otherwise we'll be out of our CFG limits for landing. But other aircraft, going back to, for instance, on the Concorde, that was very crucial that they had to move fuel around the aircraft constantly to keep the centre of gravity within very well defined limits. What else might we do en route? Tuning nav aids and monitoring our navigational progress across the route is something we do. Now again, across Europe on those shorter routes, it's all very simple. We're often going direct from one point to the other. We're not necessarily following airways based on navigational aids like VORs. But it is good practice, and again we're required to by our SOPs to manually tune and monitor VORs, en route VORs. In fact, the aircraft will automatically in the background be tuning various nav aids, be tuning into DMEs, that's distance measuring equipment, tuning into VORs, TACANs and all that kind of thing, automatically updating its system and monitoring its cross-track error. But we can also do that ourselves. We can manually tune on our navigational frequencies on the comms box. We can tune into local VORs and we can monitor our progress compared to them. If you really fancy, you could start marking it all down on charts, taking a bearing and a distance of a VOR or an NDB even, and plotting it in on a chart. The problem with that these days is that as I say, we tend not to track to or from VORs that much. We'll often get very long directs from one IFR waypoint to the other, particularly over Europe where it's all centrally controlled. So it wouldn't be particularly uncommon to, once you're up in the cruise, be given an instruction to go direct to some IFR waypoint 500 miles away. So the FMS is clever enough to work out exactly which direction to track in to do that. But that would be a job for the pilot non-flight. In fact, the pilot monitoring, slap myself on the wrist there, pilot monitoring we call it these days. That would be something for him to do, to, as we go along the route, use the charts, have a look, see what navigational aids are nearby and tune into them and just monitor our position. Now, I mentioned charts there. These days, or at least at my company and a lot of other companies, we've now done away with the paper charts, the old big Jefferson paper charts that you can fold out, and it's like struggling with an old broadsheet newspaper. these huge things that you could probably build a tent out of. These days we have it all electronically on our iPads, which in some ways is very good, but there are some disadvantages to that. The old paper charts were very good for looking up additional information. On the iPads, it's a little bit hidden. If you want to look up some frequencies, for instance, or some en route data, you need to know what sort of sub-menus to go into, and it can be quite fiddly. It's something you really need to use very regularly to be familiar with it. And the truth is, although we're required to have those charts with us on board, and we do, of course, and they get updated regularly, on those shorter routes, you don't often get them out, to be honest. We'll have a look at them at the beginning of the flight when we put the flight plan into the iPad, just have a general look at the route, make sure it makes sense. But during the cruise, we're not getting them out that much and monitoring them that closely, to be honest. It's good to have it there, and you can grab it if you need it, but we don't tend to use it too much. Again, for the long haul boys, that will be quite different, especially on those long ocean crossings. They'll be regularly plotting their position on paper charts, typically the old North Atlantic plotting charts, for instance, where you're required to be reporting in at particular longitudes and latitudes. You'll be plotting all of those on a chart with a pencil, doing it the old-fashioned way. But for us, or for me at least, we don't use it too often. But the very nice thing with those iPad derived charts is you can zoom in and you can zoom out on the chart, which is obviously you can't do that on a paper chart, but you can zoom in and you can look at particular airports along the route. You can just click on the airport and it will come up with all the airport diagrams and all the airport charts, which is very handy. All in all, having all this stuff electronically, all the charts, the JEP charts, the approach charts, the en route maps on an iPad really does save a lot of space, a lot of weight, and it saves you having to unfold these massive charts out in the confines of a small flight deck. Now, I'm sure there's lots of other stuff that we do en route, but it mostly involves looking out the window and complaining about our management. So I won't go into that too much. Well, listen, I guess this is the last show before the guys head off to Pittsburgh next week. I'm sure they're uber excited. Well, maybe Matt's a bit cooler about it because Matt's a generally pretty cool guy, whereas Carlos is a child trapped in a man's body. I'm sure he's hopping up and down with excitement. I'd love to be able to go there, but it's not going to work out for me. I'm going to be camping in Wales. Yay! So much better than going to Pittsburgh, isn't it? Ugh. Anyway, guys, and everyone else going, I hope you have a wonderful time in Pittsburgh. I'm so jealous. Hope the weather's nice, and I'm sure you're going to have a great time. I don't know if the guys are producing a show live from Pittsburgh. I'm sure they will.
Yes, we are.
Yeah.
Can't wait to hear that one. But until I speak to you all again next time, take care and fly safe. Bye.
And Matt's really hoping that Pilot Pip is going to send us a nice little segment that we can play out as part of our show when we are in Pittsburgh. So fingers crossed. Yeah, absolutely.
Hint.
Hint. He says subtle as a sledgehammer.
Find this and other great shows at the Aviation Media Network.
thevoicesinyourhead.com.
The Plain Talking UK podcast is a voluntary project that aims to keep you informed with the latest aviation-related stories from newswires across the globe.
Producing our content does cost money though. If you enjoy our show, why not help us keep on the air by making a donation towards the server and website hosting fees through PayPal. Any contributions would be greatly appreciated.
Are you an Amazon user? If so, why not do your shopping through the link on our website? There's no cost to yourself and Amazon pay us a small referral fee on qualifying purchases.
To find out more about the show and to meet the team, take yourself to our website www.plaintalkinguk.com,
or find us on Facebook at facebook.com/plaintalkinguk, on Twitter via @plaintalkinguk, or get in touch via email on podcast@plaintalkinguk.com. Thanks for listening.
Flybe 5823, Trent Dane for 23R Manchester, Wizz Air 6X, climb flight level 210, direct to Bretlands Park. United 123, maintain 280 knots. London 2 TME, turn right onto Bravo, link.
That's enough air traffic control for today, Nat. Bedtime.
Aviation media has long been the domain of the newspapers and magazines. Well, not anymore. I'm Steve Vischer.
And I'm Grant McCarran, and we're bringing aviation right into your radio.
Yes, we're making aviation cool and interesting for everyone.
Hang on, aviation's always been cool. Check this out.
How cool is this?
Grant, turn that down. Here at Plane Crazy Down Under, we've got pilots, engineers, air traffic controllers, industry leaders, even politicians dropping by to talk to us about the amazing world of aviation right here in Australia and occasionally New Zealand as well.
Wow, that's cooler than I thought, mate.
Find us at planecrazydownunder.com, on iTunes, or lurking about on other people's podcasts just like this one.
We've got crazy accents and lots of great aviation content.
And we promise not to talk about the cricket.
No, never. Not the cricket.
Quack, 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 quack.
What is cricket anyhow?
Something we win a lot. Oh, there
Oh!
So our guest this week on the show is a very well-versed pilot. She's flown or instructed on the 747-400, the 200 series, 767, 757, 737, 727, so basically anything that Boeing have made.
That's a pretty huge list.
I know. And also the A330 aircraft. She's been a pilot for 38 years and worked for many different airlines, including Braniff, which most people would have heard of Braniff, and Tower Air, Northwest Airline, and currently flies for an international airline and is based at LAX on the Boeing 777, awaiting training. She holds an MBA and MHS degrees and is a doctoral candidate in aviation at the ERAU. Her passion is aviation safety with a focus on pilot training for next-gen operations. So welcome onto the show, Karlene Petitt.
Thank you so much for having me.
It's very good as we have you on. We've got some pilot royalty on the show this week, I will say. I mean, is there anything you haven't flown, Karlene?
Yes, but there's nothing that I haven't wanted to fly. So let's put it that way.
Well, thanks for joining us tonight, Karlene. It's nice to have you on and have a chat with you because. For those of you who don't follow Karlene online, you should do because she's also a very, very well-established author as well and has written some very nice books which you should all get on and buy and read.
Absolutely. Links to those details will be coming up later.
Yes. So we've got some questions to ask you on the show this week, Karlene, and so we're gonna crack straight on with a few questions for you then. So your aviation passion, Karlene, where did it start? Sort of the early flying days and the aircraft you first flew.
Well, my aviation passion actually started because I knew nothing about aviation, and I was playing a game called Careers with my girlfriends that you could, this was at 9 years old, by the way, and you could be a librarian, a school teacher, a model, a nurse, or a hostess. And for all the younger viewers, a hostess is like precursor flight attendant, precursor stewardess. And I was told by my girlfriend, you can't be a pilot. Well, first off, I couldn't get on the spot, so I said, I'm going to be the pilot. And she said, you can't be a pilot. Girls can't do that. And I said, yes, they can. She said, no, they can't. Yes, they can. We got in this huge fight. So my dad said they can't be a pilot. So ironically, 8 airlines later, and I don't want to say 40-some years later, I am actually working for the airline of my girlfriend whose dad said girls can't be pilots. So it kind of went full circle, but that's what started it, just because a challenge saying that I couldn't. And then I told everyone I could, started earning my money. And I'll tell you, when I first got in that 172, I went out and paid I think at the time it was $10 to go that introductory flight. And the instructor walked me around and showed me the aircraft, and we got on the runway. And then he said, you have it. And I go, I don't have it. I don't know how to fly. And he says, no, you have it. And I'm going to show you how to do this. And so he talked me through pushing in the throttle and using my feet to steer. And the minute we broke ground, that moment, I thought, you could not wipe the smile off my face. I thought, wow, they're going to pay me to do this? And I was hooked. I was absolutely hooked. And so actually that's what I've been doing for the last 10 years. I've been hosting flights for pilots that are just the normal people come out and take a free flight. And we've got a cadre of incredible people over the years bringing their aircraft into, maybe anywhere from 6 to 10. We have the retired CEO at Alaska Airlines. He brings his Malibu out and gives free flights to kids and hope to inspire them for the same event that I had. So we've been doing that for about 10 years. I've gifted flights to thousands of kids, and it's really fun now seeing them come back to me and now that they're actually flying. So, yeah.
So from the PPL, obviously you passed and you got your PPL. Yeah. When did it progress from there for the commercial? Obviously you got your commercial license and your multi-engine and...
Yeah, and I did that while I was in high school, by the way. So I made that decision, and then I ran out to career counselor, and they said, you can't be a pilot. Girls can't do that. You've got to go to the military to be a pilot. And I thought, I don't think so. So I just went out and I did the general aviation route. Earned all my ratings while in high school, and then I decided that I was going to, I had the plan, as you can tell, I'm kind of a planner. I'd go to college, get all my ratings, get my college degree, go fly for an airline. And I ended up kind of doing things backwards because I met the man that would soon be my husband. We've been married for 36 years, by the way, and have 3 grown children. So my plans kind of altered a little bit. And so what I did is I had my children while I was attending college. And then after they were born, then I went out and decided that I was going to, go fly. Now, my plan started a little bit earlier because I intended on waiting until they got into grade school. But I was working on my flight engineer rating at the time, which back then we had to do it. And at night after I got the kids to bed, I would go over to this training center and where I was getting the rating. And that's where Evergreen was doing training. And I said, and it was on 727, and I said, hey, do you mind if I come in and observe your check ride? And explain to him what I was doing and that I had never been, part of an operating crew. And I just knew the academics, not the full concept of what they were doing. And they said, sure, come on in. And so I sat back of the simulator like a quiet little mouse, and I watched this choreographed play while they were giving the captain, failing engines on them, hydraulic problems, and how they worked together as a crew. And I did that for 2 nights in a row. The third night I went out there and they had a different crew, and the flight engineer didn't show up. And they had professional flight engineers at the time, and they were going to cancel the training. And I said, I don't have a rating yet. And I said, but I watched the last 2 nights. I said, I could work the panel for you and read your checklist. And they kind of looked at each other, and it turned out it was one of the chief pilots who was in the left seat getting his training. And he said, sure, if you want to. So I actually was an operating crew during the chief pilot's check ride on this training session for Evergreen and did this. And so we went through, and I actually did it for him for 2 nights in a row, and everything went great. And then about a month later, they called and asked if I wanted to come work for him. And that was an interesting phone call because they said, do you mind being based in Terre Haute? And I said, absolutely not. And then I hung up the phone and asked my husband, where's Terre Haute? I had no idea, But I said the right questions, and I went in, and they had to give me a simulator session to see if I was trainable, because they were hiring me as a first officer on the 727, not as a flight engineer. And they wanted to see if I could fly. And so that's where it started. And it went from Evergreen, and I made the big career choice to get checked out on the 747 at Evergreen or go to Braniff. And I thought, I'm going to go fly for an airline instead of cargo. And I went over to Braniff, and then I went through Braniff's bankruptcy. Then I went down to America West, their training department, and I was dual qualified in the 73, 757 instructing, and kind of found I had a passion for teaching, and I loved it. And so then I was recruited, in my side job to help put these 3 kids through college was sim instructing for another company. And I went and put down, it was down in Guyana Airways. They were putting 757 in service. So I went down and put their program together. And the airline path, in my book, Flight to Success, I kind of have the chain of what happened in my entire career for the choices I made. But these airlines kept closing down, and then it would push me on to the next. So I ended up flying at Tower Air, right seat on the 747. That was quite an experience. And then went over to Northwest Airlines and went through their merger. So it's been an absolutely fun and exciting career.
A busy career, I think, Karlene. It definitely sounds like a busy career you've had.
So, one of the questions that we've just had a question in from the chat room, going back to what you were talking about, where like your girlfriends were saying you can't fly an aeroplane, don't be silly type thing. Tony S has asked a great question, actually. What advice would you give to any young girls who are interested in getting into aviation? I mean, what route would you recommend?
I would absolutely tell them to go for it, and get your education. That's probably the biggest thing, because right now the airlines most of them require college education, and because the industry is in such flux, and you don't know, you could even lose your medical. You don't know if that job's going to be long term. So get your college degree, but get it in something that you have a passion for and that you love. And if you love computers, I would say go that route, because our world is going to computers. So you can do both. You don't have to necessarily get a degree that is aviation related, but I say do what you love, get that passion, and then go fly. And there's a lot of ab initio schools that are, what they are is they're colleges that you can go through and you can get your degree and you can learn to fly at the same time. And then if you go that route, the requirement for hours is limited a little bit in the U.S. So, but I'd say do it, and there's great support systems. There's actually the shirt I'm wearing right now, you can't really see it, that's a little 99 thing. The 99 group, I never joined them. They're general aviation. Reach out to a 99 group in your area. They're worldwide, and they're fabulous. And I had never joined because there's the stigma when I was flying that the guys would say, oh, so you belong to one of those women groups? I'm like, no, because I wanted to be a pilot, not a woman pilot. I was trying to transcend this male-female thing. But the reality is the 99s and all the women groups, they're very supportive, and they're not just for women only, guys. You can join them too. And they have scholarships available. They're the general aviation gurus. They're out there helping the airports, are doing things, and there's always somebody with an airplane that would love to let you fly it with them. So it's really a good route.
Jennifer in the chat room has said that you'll be pleased to know, Karlene, that her daughter will be doing a Young Eagles flight in June, and she's extremely excited about it.
Absolutely.
That's great. That's wonderful.
So moving on then to the next question then we've got here for you on the list. So you move on to the big airlines, obviously flying the big airline types and stuff. So the types you've flown, we obviously went through all the Boeing products. You've flown obviously the classic 747, the 200, and the newer 747-400, plus the 76 and 75, which are awesome aircraft as well. But have you got a favourite between, obviously, because you fly the A330 you've flown as well? Is there, because there is a kind of a jovial divide between Airbus and Boeing people on the show.
Do you know, I hadn't noticed.
we often we have a bit of funny banter between the various people in the chat room, plus our guests as well. So is there a favourite at all you've got, Karlene? On the spot, Airbus or Boeing?
Yes, there is a favorite. I'm going to tell you, there is not an airplane that I have not liked flying. I've loved flying them all, but my favorite would be the 747-400.
Yay! Okay. Is there a reason why perhaps you prefer that over say something from Airbus or whatever? I mean, is there something in particular?
Because Karlene likes to fly a plane.
Oh, stop it!
Actually, real.
Well, okay, we have a couple. It depends how clean we want to keep this, but when airplanes come, size is an issue because it's so awesome to take that huge airplane. I mean, just think about it.
Yeah,
in a 750,000 pound machine into the sky, it's pretty awesome to think about it. But the reality is, the Boeing 747-400, it's such a nice combination between traditional flying that you still have stick rudder, you're trimming the airplane, and so you still have the old school controls on it, but then you have the glass, which supplements safety, and you have all the automation with it, which is a nice add-on. But for understanding and for old school stick and rudder, it's kind of what I grew up with, so it's a comfort, but it transitions you into the glass too.
But between the two, the 400 and the 200 series, is there a favourite between those two? Obviously they're completely different inside technology-wise, but did you not love to fly the old classic 200?
I do, but the interesting thing is there's really not a different technology. I was a flight engineer, or we'll call it second officer instructor on that 747 for so many years. And I think what I loved about the 747-400 is because, and I zipped through training because I understood everything, because what they did is they took my job in that back seat and everything that I did, and they automated me, and they put me in the overhead panel on the 747-400. So everything that the system was doing, I'm going, oh, I know why it does that, because I used to do that back at the panel. So it's, as far as the airplane flying, it's, it flies relatively the same to me as, the feeling to me, but sadly, it's a getting rid of a job. But it was nice being an engineer because you learn a lot from sitting at that panel from the people in front of you. Not only what you should do, but maybe some things you may not do in the future. But But I'm glad I had the opportunity to do that. It was great.
We've got a question from our house-trained pilot, a safety expert, pilot Pip. He's asked that he's got a question for you. He says, have you seen a change in attitude over your time in the airlines towards women pilots from your male pilot colleagues?
Well, that's kind of a loaded question, and yes, I have. It has changed quite a bit. But you know what the interesting thing is, as I was flying with a captain years ago, and he said, Karlene, we're hiring a lot better women these days. And I said, I don't think so. We're hiring the same women. And you know what the difference is today we work as a team, we work as a crew, and we work together. Back then when the women were flying, it was kind of like they put their bricks in our flight bags and let us go solo pilot in the big machine. So there has been a difference significantly. We still have a long way to go. But not so much with the flight crews. The flight crews are pretty awesome working with them. It's more of a culture with different airlines, I would say.
Yeah. So, Karlene, you fly one of the second most favourite aircraft on my list of most favourite aircraft in the world. So the 757. That is a favourite of quite a few pilots. Who did you fly that for?
I actually instructed on that at America West, and then I flew that for Guyana Airways.
Oh,
and
wow.
I was a director of training down at Guyana, so I had the opportunity to teach ground school, simulator, and then work as a check airman on the aircraft. So
it has a nickname as a pocket rocket. It's very overpowered, so the pilots say. I'm guessing that's fairly true.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, we had ours fully loaded coming out of Guyana into New York. I'll tell you though, they maxed that thing out.
But it's Rolls-Royce powered, that's why.
Decent
engines. So
that's terrible.
I know. So next question for you, Karlene. So a little bit about obviously because the passion for aviation, safety pilot training. So what's the safety pilot training part all about that you do?
Yeah, I actually. I'm going back to school at Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University, and I'm getting my PhD in aviation with a safety focus. And where that started is because when I transitioned from the Boeing into the Airbus, we shifted from traditional training into AQP. For the listeners, it's aircraft qualification procedures. And what I've been watching is as more automated the aircraft become, the training gets cut back shorter. And so they're shifting the training. Pilots are now teaching themselves aircraft systems at home. They're going in and we no longer sit with an FAA examiner to assess whether we have a full understanding of the aircraft. We're taking a computer test, which select A, B, C, D. And so how we are training for these automated aircraft is under the premise that the aircraft is so reliable, nothing will ever happen, and the pilots don't need to know. And what's going to happen is when that plane breaks, the question will be, will they need to know? Mm-hmm. And so, and you look at every incident and every accident that occurs, they blame pilot error on this.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And, and it's if you threw somebody in the river who didn't know how to swim, it's not their fault they drowned, if they haven't been given the tools. And so what I'm researching now is what is really behind. The Office Inspector General came out in 2016 and said that pilots we're losing our flight skills, and that we don't have the ability to monitor the aircraft and relax systems understanding. And I found all these reports of these human errors that are made by pilots. And I contend that it's not pilot error if we're not provided the tools. So I'm trying to gather the data through my research to show what the contributing factors are to help take away this, and I call it the blame factor, because we're blaming the last person at the control of this aircraft, when if you don't provide them the tools and the ability and the skills and the practice situation, what more can they do? We can only do what we can do. So very, very much passion of mine go on this route.
So you've obviously, you were talking before we started the show, you've got like a questionnaire thing you've got via your website. We're going to put some links in the show notes for that, which you can have questionnaires for pilots, aren't you, to do with the safety aspect that you're covering there.
Right, because when I do my research, I'm in the approval process right now, and when I get approved and get the International Review Board to approve this, then what I'm going to do is provide a survey, and I'm going to need a minimum of 1,600 pilots, and I can have corporate, commercial, airline, corporate, charter, and the only qualifications you have to work with the 2 crew or more group. It's going completely anonymous, because I know from my experience there's a lot of fear with pilots speaking out against their company training, against what they're receiving. So it's completely anonymous. It will not take, I'm not taking any names. I'm not taking any airlines. I just want to gather the data and see how they answer these questions. And so on my blog, on my website, I have a little informational link right now with my email address to say, if you're interested in participating in this, send me an email and just say pilot survey, and I'm going to pop you into the list, and it's really going to be something that I think will greatly impact and benefit the pilots and the safety of our system going forward, especially with next gen and more automation and everything. It's through my research, they found out that, or somebody said that between 2020 and 2025, we're going to have an unprecedented set of accidents. And you know who they're going to blame? The pilots. And it's, and so I'm just such a pilot advocate, a safety advocate. And, and I've got 8 grandchildren, and my daughters, my grandkids are on airplanes all the time. I want safety for everyone.
Exactly. The question for you on the talk of safety, Karlene, we've got a question from Neville Bounds. Neville's asking about cockpit automation. Do you encourage manual handling skills when flying?
Well, that's a problem with automation, is because we are training our pilots to just use the automation and without the training of the manual skills. And so you're never going to get it. And there's some circumstances which we're prevented. If we're in RVSM airspace, we've got to use it in certain approaches. As next gen pushes more, allows more aircraft into the system, and we have tighter clearances between each other, they're going to be mandated to use automation. So there's little time for us to use those manual flying skills, and they are being decreased because we're not using them. And so it is, if you say safety or not, utilizing the automation is actually a safer course of action. And you want to do the safest, especially if you're fatigued from flying all night, you're in an unusual aircraft, an unusual area. If I'm from Seattle and I'm flying over into Paris and we've got the strong accidents, high congestion, early morning, you've been flying all night, automation and backing each other up is going to be the safest course. But we still need to have those skills. And we have these great training devices that those skills should be utilized in those simulators. So we are losing them, but we are not really being provided the opportunity to practice where we need to practice.
Manual all the way flying, that's what I say. Even though we didn't do much of that in the simulator the other week. Not until about 3,000 feet anyway. So a question from Imogen King in the chat room, Karlene. She's asked, what's the furthest you've ever flown?
Oh, the furthest I've ever flown. I actually flew in a 5-day period from, does she mean long term? I went from Seattle to Narita to Singapore to Mumbai, and then went backwards, came back the same way, and then the next 3 days later I went from Seattle to Amsterdam to Mumbai. So I kind of think that I went around the world within a week, just back and forth.
Wow.
Yeah.
So at the moment you're flying for Acme. Are you flying the 777 is at the moment?
I have not been trained. I'm waiting training. So I'm officially on 777, but I'm waiting training. So this time is giving me ability to work on my research.
So at the moment, what's your aircraft of choice now for your flying?
We'll find out. We'll find out if it's going to be the 777. I think that might be. Well, here's the thing. I'm really looking forward to it, because the Airbus, the A330, the difference between that, we don't auto trim. That thing auto trims. We don't trim it. And it's kind of a point and shoot. I think the 777 is a combination, if I could say anything without doing this yet, is a combination between the 747-400 and a little bit more fly-by-wire technology that the Airbus uses. So it would be interesting to fly that and really get a feel to see what it's like. But you know what I'm doing? I'm actually buying a 777 simulator that I will start playing with it at home, because I'm interested to see how these desktop simulators really prepare somebody, if it'll be a difference doing that going into the training, as my other type ratings, when I didn't have any of that, just went directly in, and see if there's a difference.
So the next, before we move on to the next question, Karlene, on the subject of the 747, are you a bit upset now that obviously they're now starting to, a lot of the airlines are starting to phase out the 400 series? Is that kind of a bit upsetting?
It is. It's very sad. It's very sad they're taking away that beautiful aircraft. But you know what? It makes sense. It's like two engines are much more efficient than 4. So
yeah, it's still sad.
It is very sad. It's like, you know, it's really sad. If you ever had an opportunity to go down what they call the boneyard and look at all these parked aircraft.
Yeah, I bet.
That's on my bucket list of places to go. Yeah, in the world. Yeah. So, Karlene, a little bit about the books, because obviously you're an author as well, and you own Jetstar Publishing. So, a bit about the books and stuff that you've written, because we can see just behind you there, you've got some of the books that you've
Yes. Yeah. Well, you know what?
I'm surprised you have time.
Do what?
I'm surprised you have time to write books, you know, with all the flying you've done.
Well, you know what the thing is as everyone has their fun and their passion, they love to do it. I don't sit and watch television. I love writing, and I think it's fun, and it's actually a very good outlet. And people write because of, you know, different reasons. Is it to educate, to train, to inspire, or to solve a problem? And my first novel, you know, I was always one to write, and I'm thinking, okay, which way do I go? And my first novel really pulled into the issues of what was going on in our world, pension loss for the flight crew. It was kind of they were changing to the 1,500-hour rule. Airlines were filing bankruptcy, they were merging, and I was thinking, wow, how much stress can you put on the flight crew before it goes into the cockpit? Because we all know stress is going to create incidents. And so then I started looking, you know, what about mental health? What if we really don't have any provisions in place to keep a mentally unstable pilot out of the cockpit? What if they slipped in? And so this is where this, my first book, Flight for Control, came about. And I had the opportunity to go to Hawaii Writers Conference and work with William Bernhardt, who's an absolutely fabulous instructor. And so this book took off. And what happened was, and where Jetstar Publishing came about, was I was met with an agent, and she owns Serendipity Books, but she's also a pilot. And she was part owner in an aircraft back in New York. And she loved aviation, loved passion, and she understood the reality of what was going on within the pages of my novel. And I actually have 3 real airline crashes that I have changed how they happened, but not why they happened. And so I worked those into real fiction, real airline crashes, and I to make them a little fun. Yes, there is sex involved in my books, and so, but I made them really fun read, but real reality based. And so this gal, she reads it and she says, "You need to publish this right now." She says, "If I took this today and sold it tomorrow, it would not get into the market for 2 years." And that's the reality of the publishing industry. Unless you're famous or you know somebody, your book's not going to get in that quickly. And she said, "You need to self-publish this. I don't want you to lose your rights to any of your characters." Everybody who's on Twitter knows Darby Bradshaw, my main pilot in this. They love Darby. You know, her Twitter handle is Darby Flies. But you know, she says, don't lose your characters. And so what I did is I started researching and looking into these self-publishing, and I saw what they were doing, and I saw some of the products that were coming out, and I thought, why can't I do this? And so I created Jetstar Publishing for a means to bring my books to life. And I've also found that there's numerous books that were not accepted because of political reasons. And which is fascinating. And so I'm
sure given the way that things are currently panning out in the States with regard to political control, should we say, I'm sure that's got a lot easier since somebody became in charge. But
well, you would be surprised. You'd be surprised what's going on in some of the organizations and the politics and what they think that they can get away with today. So. Yeah, it's interesting. So anyway, so Jetstar Publishing came about to bring to life my books. The second one in my series is Flight for Safety, and that was a merger between 2 airlines, and and it's a series, and so you can read each independently, but it's kind of fun if you start at the beginning. And that really brought into more of a theme. You know, the first one was mental health, human factors, and people's lives. What taking a pension and shutting down an airline is going to do to a life of a human being. And then we went into this merger. And through this merger, one of my characters, she ends up transitioning from Boeing to Airbus. And so we go into the training of this. And we all know that Air France pulled their A330 out of the ocean because a pilot stalled that aircraft at altitude. And everybody wonders, how could that pilot do this? Well, this addresses the training issue, goes in behind the scenes of corporations and what's going on with training in these automated aircraft. And then after all the bad stuff happens in that, the murder and the sex and the violence, then we transition to flight for survival. And now my two characters are just trying to survive this. And so it merges into safety culture and safety management systems and where we're going with next gen. And then the fourth novel that actually just came out in February, which so far everybody says is the best of all of them, A Flight for Sanity. And this is what happens when individuals within this airline environment decide that they're going to try and create a safe environment, work towards the retaliation of what these airlines are doing to employees. And I used to say that my books were, the only fiction was the murder, the sex, and the sinister plot. But now we're kind of getting down to the only fiction is the murder and the sex. Because some of the sinister plots are somewhat coming about. The interesting thing is in my novels, granted, the first one I used real accidents that happened, but the other ones I wrote incidents that occurred. And then later, an accident did occur that appeared in my book. But the incident had already happened. It just didn't manifest into the accident. Asiana crashing in San Francisco is a perfect example. I had Flight for Safety in the hands of my editor the day that news flash came up when they crashed short. And he called me and said, "How did you know?" I had almost identical crew complement, check airman in the right seat, a new captain in the left, only difference it was an A330 coming from a 777. And so people are, your books are coming true. And they're not really coming true. It's just when you're living inside the industry and you see what's going on, and it's kind of like predictive safety. That's where we're trying to go. We see problems and we're trying to be proactive. We can see it, we predict it, and we be proactive to stop it. And so that's really where my novels are going. I'm actually working on the 5th, Flight for Justice.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, it's going to be really good, too.
Just going to ask another lovely question from Imogen. Now, Imogen, bless her, is only 8. And she's asked the question, how difficult is it to fly?
It is so easy. I have to tell you that they even let boys do it.
What? Oh no, surely not.
Certainly, yes. They even let the boys do it. That's how easy it is.
Well, and that is a very good answer. Absolutely.
Especially for an 8-year-old.
Absolutely, yes. I completely agree.
Yes.
Actually, I was going to ask, are any of your children into flying? Pilots,
no, they are not. They're all doing different things. Actually, my middle daughter is now running Jetstar Publishing. Oh. She's got her PhD and her doctoral in archaeology, and she's a mom with 2 kids, and she's running Jetstar Publishing. My eldest daughter is a manager over at Amazon, and my youngest daughter has her master's in education, but she's got 3 children. Hers are the youngest, so she's a stay-at-home mom, but my really funny story, I took 2 of the daughters back to simulator, and my middle daughter was flying the 747-400 simulator, had never been in it, so she comes in and sits in the left seat, and I sit in the right seat, and so we talked her through, told her where the flaps were and how to set them, had her put her hands on the thrust, told her where to set it, which buttons to push, and talked her through. I never touched the controls. There was 2 check airmen in the back operating the simulator, and she took this airplane off, went up to altitude, flew around, and flew a perfect approach and landed the airplane. Okay, it was beautiful. And the guys in the back are cracking up laughing because you can imagine what they see come through the simulator sometime. And they're saying, "Kayla, pilot hiring's right down the hall." And we got to get down. And she was 13 years old at the time. And it was so cute. She just kind of looked out at the overhead and goes, "No, I don't think so. There's far too many buttons in here." So she wasn't going to be a pilot because there were too many buttons.
Agreed, yeah.
Matt's not a huge fan of flying, my co-host here.
Ironically, yes, but, absolutely. He does an aviation show every week and he's terrified of flying, but we'll gloss over that and move on, shall we?
But even saying that, Karlene, we've got the segment to run in the show later on, but we had a trip down to a sim in London last week, and Matt got to have a go in the 737-800 simulator, and he landed.
I did.
Without he landed incredibly well.
Absolutely.
So it just goes to show. But it's great. It's obviously great when your children are interested in kind of interested in the flying aspect of stuff. But next question for you, Karlene. Any interesting stories you have of your flying career? Any incidents or things that you could talk about or quickly that have happened?
Yes, well, probably the most interesting flying was flying the Hajj for Tower Air around the world. But as far as an incident, flying 747, I was actually the flight engineer. We were coming out of New York, fully loaded freighter going to Anchorage. And I remember sitting at the panel, and it was, we began at night, but now it's daylight. And I remember watching the oil pressure in the oil started going around one of the engines. Now, not a big deal. We ended up shutting down the engine. The interesting thing was my reaction was not, it was kind of, oh, cool, we get to shut down an engine, and you would think an engine failure in this airplane would instill a little bit of fear. And so I found that fascinating, because we all know that our performance is so much better if we don't fear, right? Yeah. If we're afraid, if we panic, we're going to not do as well. And so I found that my reaction to this process interesting from an understanding, because this is what I trained pilots how to do, how to shut down these engines, and we go through this training. But I never actually got to do it in real life, and I viewed this as a fun, something to reduce the boredom of the flight or something, and we had to descend down because we were too heavy at the altitude we were at, and it was beautiful flying over the mountains a little bit closer, but it made me think about the power of training and confidence, and correlating that with confidence, because I had such an understanding of this aircraft, how it worked, what we were capable of, what it was capable of, that it was not a big deal to lose an engine and shut it down. And I think that what has driven me into the aviation safety passion, because what's transferred into the new automated aircraft is training is so light that there is not a thorough understanding, and I think it's affecting pilots' confidence. And I think that's a problem. And then when something does happen, they won't have that, oh, good, we have a situation, let's deal with it type of attitude. It'll be more of a reactive, with that little bit of panic in there, that this is really happening, and what if I'm not prepared? What if I don't know? What if I haven't experienced this type attitude? So I really think the confidence level, if nothing else, of beefing up training and understanding in today's world is going to be a huge value.
I was going to say, if you're going to have an engine failure, the 747 is probably your best bet, because at least
you've got four engines.
You've got four of them.
You've got three to play with.
Yeah. So, Karlene, another question then. Your future plans. What are the future plans for you? Obviously, you've got your new book coming out soon. What about the flying? You've got the 777 coming up possibly as well.
My future plans, get checked out on that 777, finish my PhD. So hopefully your listeners can help support that, because it's going to be a data collection nightmare. Trying to get that many people. But I really firmly believe that, just look at your viewers and how many viewers and people out there who have a passion for aviation, that they're going to be interested in this, because it's going to impact all of us, collecting the data. So the PhD, the new book, the type rating, and then what I'm looking at is writing movies. Because, and I have a children's book, and I'm going to actually make my children's movie into a book first, only because from what I've learned in the Hollywood realm, sometimes if you pitch your movie idea, nobody likes it, and then 2 years later your movie pops out on the screen and kind of an essence of what you did. So I'm gonna do my children's book first, do it a movie, and I have had a lot of interest in my novels, especially the first one, Flight for Control, because they said it's so visual, of potentially becoming a movie. I have no doubt that my current novels will hit the big screen.
Cool. Looking forward to that.
Yeah, because because my what I'm actually planning on doing, there is so much truth woven inside my books that what I'm going to do is, probably after the Flight for Justice, so we'll have the 5 novels, I am going to write the nonfiction version of these books. And it's going to be whether or not it's in one book format, or I'm going to attack each one differently, I'm not sure. But I think the only way to create change from what I'm experiencing, is if we let the public know and let the public help come to support.
Will that be a Clint Eastwood directed film?
Yeah. And you know what? Here's the funny thing. You guys can come and be in my movie because all your viewers, just tell them, they can come be in my movie. And the interesting thing, I was taking a screenwriting course because I thought I wanted to learn how to write a screenplay.
Oh, wow.
And I told the professor who was teaching this, I said, yes, this particular scene is actually, it was very sad because the airplane crashed and everyone had lost their family and friends on this. And if that has never happened to you, from the airline, we know individually when we lose somebody on an airplane, it is devastating. But from the airline perspective, you've lost family and friends. And when there was a horrendous crash at one of the major airlines, my sister was a flight attendant. So she lost her friends. She went out and met families and she lost them. It's huge. So what I did is I created my book, a memorial for the family and friends to come together after this airline, in my fictional airline crash, this aircraft. And I brought them together, and they're all airline people. And so I said to this agent, or the professor who's teaching this class, I said, I am going to have all real people be the extras in my movie who come to that memorarial. All they have to do is drink beer and be sad.
I think I can do that. That's fine.
I think when you want to screencast your pilots who are going to fly in this film, me and Matt will fly over to the States and we'll be your we'll play pilots.
And if you want real pilots, we have contacts with. I don't know if Captain Al, loads of people who could come and do the honours.
Actually, you got a question from the chat room?
No.
Oh, Lucas, we've got a question from Lucas.
Okay, all right, go on.
Yeah, Lucas Tybert, I hope I pronounced your name right.
You're in trouble.
Lucas in the chat room.
Lucas,
I know. So Lucas has got a question for you, Karlene. He says here, did you have any funny or weird conversations with ATCOs during your career?
Oh, wow. No.
No, okay, right. Okay, we'll leave it at that. Fine.
Because, we never had any funny. Well, you know what? The humorous ones were, let me think. Yeah, no, we'll leave it at that. No,
okay, that's fine. That's absolutely fine. Well, we're going to let you go now, Karlene, but we've got one more question that we ask everyone
who is
our
golden question.
Yeah, our golden question. It's kind of our thing, if you like. We always ask our pilots this. Given the chance to fly any aircraft that is either retired or flying today, what would you most love to have a go of flying? And you can. We allow you to have it like two. If you want to have two, you can have two. But is there something that you would just love to get in like the the jump seat for, and just
any seat,
any seat,
any seat, the cockpit seat.
Ideally,
old and new,
yeah.
And they were I call them missed opportunities. The old one would be a Boeing 707 because when I went down to Guyana Airways, they had one parked on the runway, and I went and put the aircraft into service. Part of my negotiated salary was I want to fly your airplane and get a type rating, and they said okay. So, but what happened is they ended up selling the airplane before we worked this through, so it never transpired. So it was an opportunity missed. The other one is the 787, because over at Northwest, I was going to be a first cadre instructor, and I was so excited for that, and then the airplanes didn't come. So it's kind of like one of those things that you almost had it and you didn't, so now I kind of want to do it.
I'm guessing you're not friends with John Travolta.
You know what? John Travolta needs to John Travolta would be a perfect Bill Jacobs in my series.
You see?
He's just that element. He can play evil and charming, because my villain, we're going to know, right off at the very beginning, Bill Jacobs does just absolutely something, the most atrocious, horrid thing in the first couple chapters of my novel, so much so that some women have closed it and not able to read the book.
Wow.
But yet he's very charming. He's the head of the union, running for the head of the union. So he's very charming, charismatic to get people to do things he wants. So definitely. We need to get John Travolta. If I'm casting my movies, he's Bill Jacobs all the way.
Sounds good to me. Sounds good.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to let you go now, Imogen. Thank you so very much for.
But before we let you go, Karlene, just tell the listeners before we let you go where can they find you on social media, or your obviously your website and stuff, your blog.
Yeah, they can find me at KarlenePetitt.com, and that'll take you right to my blog. It's Karlene. Petitt is Petitt, And my email address is firstname.lastname@gmail.com. And then they can Google any of the books. I'm Karlene Petitt on Twitter. You follow me on Twitter. And yeah, you can reach out. Any questions, even that 8-year-old reaching out, can email me. Yeah.
On that note, Karlene, Richard King has just said thank you ever so much for answering Imogen's questions. You made her day.
Awesome.
Yeah. So
tell him to email me her address, and I will send her an I Am Awesome book.
Oh, yeah, do. All right, yeah.
Excellent.
Okay, leave it with us. We'll do that. Well, seriously, Karlene, thank you so very much for being so generous with your time today. Karlene's blog will be available in the show notes, so you can have a good read of the great buy her books and everything. So seriously, guys, make sure you do that. They are fascinating books.
And it's been absolutely fantastic to speak to you, Karlene, and talk to you on the show. I know everyone in the chat room has definitely enjoyed listening to you today. And it's been, like I said, it's been fantastic to have you on the show. So thank you very, very much.
I thank you both for the opportunity.
Oh, it's great.
Hopefully we can do it again.
Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah.
Well, when your film is about to be made, and you need to sort of get some extras, then just give us a shout.
I definitely will. Because I didn't finish that. What they had said is, she said, you can't tell the directors of a movie what you're going to do. I said, why not? It's my movie. And she said, no. You mean you will prevent your movie from being made because you want those people in there? I said, no, you're thinking of it backwards. They're not going to want to make my movie because we want pilot extras.
Yeah.
And so she didn't think of it that way. But yeah, no, we're going to do it. Tell everyone in your chat room they're going to be in the movie. And make it happen.
Yeah,
that's it. So don't forget, guys, those who are listening on the audio podcast as well, check out the show notes for all the links that will take you to obviously the books and obviously Karlene's blog as well. So again, thanks for coming on the show, Karlene. You've been an absolute star this evening. So we're going to let you get back to your busy day. But from all of us here at Plain Talking UK, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Okay, right. Don Sebastian is doing some kind of pre-buy thing in a so we're just going to dial him up very quickly and have a very brief chat with him. All right.
Yeah,
so
I'm going to take you on a little tour here of what you do to buy a jet airplane. You got all these books to go through, and I'm in the Sacramento, California, and this is where it all started right here. You still with me?
Yeah, we are. Yeah.
Yeah, it all started right there, and then they started making these bamboo bombers, Cessna, and just to prove how strong they are, they got all the employees to stand on the wings.
Oh wow!
No way. That's amazing.
Yeah, that's pretty good, isn't it?
It is.
And here they are. Yeah, here's the famous guys, and lots of history here. Oh, look at that, another wing. But we're going to take you outside.
Oh wow! So what are you doing there today, Don? What are you up to?
Well, I'm checking out an airplane, a Cessna Citation. So I can out the door. And she's going to let me out the door in a minute.
Oh, okay, good.
That's the main facility in Wichita.
Mm-hmm.
And while I'm waiting for this lady to see, they have free cookies here. And
oh, wow.
Guys, you had me.
You've seen it all here live, guys. So this is going to be an
the
interesting
power
part
sounds,
for Matt to edit.
You got a nice machine here. Hey, how you doing today?
Yeah.
Okay. So anyway... she's on the phone right now, but she'll be taking me outside in a minute.
Okay.
And here's most of the airplanes are in the hangar. I'll show you my airplane.
Oh wow!
Oh wow! Look at that!
Goodness me. It's all the ones in the hangar are broken. And if you want to buy a brand new one, gosh, they're not that much. $5-6 million. What the heck? And matter of fact, they're building a turboprop right now.
Oh wow!
And there it is. It's going to compete with the Pilatus, and then the famous
the caravan.
The caravan. Yeah. Very famous. Yeah.
And let me get out. Here's the deal. I got this security badge here.
Yeah.
And the spare battery for my phone, so I'm ready to go. But this badge doesn't open that lock, so I'm going to have to find somebody to open it for me.
Oh no.
So it won't take a second. She happens to be on the phone right now.
That's all right. That's fine.
And
that's no problem.
I'll find somebody else to open it for me.
I've got so much editing to do with the show this week anyway. It's to take you for time, Don. It's not a problem at all.
So this is a bit of an addition for those of you who are watching in the YouTube room. This is a bit of an addition for this week's show. We weren't expecting to talk to Don, so don't panic.
That's right. Absolutely. Well, I'll let you outside here Mike's talking too. Let's get outside there and show you what's going on. Everybody's talking here.
Everybody's busy, honestly. Everybody's working except you, Don, honestly.
Everybody's working hard.
Yeah.
And basically the paperwork will just eat you up on these airplanes.
I bet.
See if I can find somebody to open the door here for me.
Actually, listen to your latest show, Don, this week. Very good, very good. Very much enjoyed it.
Yeah, it's matter of fact, if you're around tomorrow at noontime Pacific time here in California, we're going to have a live podcast.
Oh, cool.
And could you get the door? Oh, okay, there we go. We're going to have a live, it's called the Twitter Periscope.
Yeah.
And, you can text in questions for pilots.
Okay.
It's for airplane owners and pilots and mechanics. And thanks a lot, dear. I appreciate that. So this is what it looks like. These are all the airplanes. And
oh, wow.
Actually, there's a deal here. If you go to work for Textron, which is now Cessna also, and Beechcraft, but if you go to work for them, they will send you to A&P school for free. And some of these guys inside of a year and a half get their airframe and power plant mechanics license. So that's a pretty good deal.
Ah, there's my jet. I wonder where my jet had gone.
I'm going to take over at my airplane here. It's not mine, of course. I don't own it. I just break it. The flight test went pretty good. There was only a few squawks on it, which is defects. And now we're deciding whether or not we should buy it for $1.5 million. And because we won't buy it in this condition that it's in right now.
Yeah, no, I bet.
They're charging $10,000 to do their work, just inspecting the airplane. And I guess my bill will be about $5,000 or so.
Wow.
And matter of fact, there's an interesting airplane over here. The state of California got this airplane for $1 off the military, and they're fixing it up for a chip. California Highway Patrol.
Wow.
And they're taking off all the antennas and military equipment and everything, and they're rebuilding the whole King Air. It's
Pip used to fly.
quite an interesting thing. Now, this is called the CJ1, which is the first citations that they made, the newer model, and it replaced the older model citations. And it's got a Williams engine on it, which is very fuel efficient and very low maintenance. And then they came out. This is the Pratt Whitney engine too, the older type citations. This plane's about 30 years old. But then they came out with a CJ4, and now we're into like $20 million brand new, and it's a lot different than this airplane. It's faster and further. So I thought I'd give you a little tour, and if you want to keep talking, we can, or if you're busy, I'll say adios.
We've got a really, really busy show, unfortunately. But Don, seriously, thank you so very much for dialing in, because it's.
I'll tell you, for anyone who's listening to the audio
you
podcast,
might get this airplane real cheap here.
Yeah,
you need to listen. You need to watch this.
Okay, well, have a good day, and I enjoyed your show so far. I've been listening to your show and doing my work. Actually, I was doing 2 airplanes at once. I was doing a virtual pre-buy on a Beechcraft Duke in Albuquerque. And I'm reading the logbooks on this airplane and listening to your show, so I don't have 3 brains, but I try.
No, indeed. Mash has had just a great comment here in the chat room, just saying, just imagine the total value in that hangar. I mean, a ballpark figure, how much would you say?
Rough idea,
yeah,
Don.
Rough idea, Don.
How much is sitting there now, would you say? Rough guess.
Oh, how much? I can't hear you too well because I'm on my portable speaker.
Yeah, that's fine.
How much is all these airplanes worth?
Yeah, all together, yeah.
Okay, well, let's start counting. Oops. 25 million.
Oh my goodness.
That one's probably only 2 million.
Oh my God.
Let's see, this one here. Oh, that's probably 5 million. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Oh, I guess we're talking $300 million. I don't know.
It's incredible.
It depends.
It's a lot of money. Yeah.
Cheaper.
Absolutely. It's an awful lot of money. Well, all I can say, Don, is thank you so
Thank you
very
very
much
much,
for messaging
Yes,
us.
okay. I hope you enjoyed the little tour.
Very much so, mate. Listeners will absolutely love it. And seriously,
Okay,
guys,
bye then.
cheers.
Keep up the good work with the podcast, Don.
Yeah, absolutely. And make sure that
I appreciate that.
give yourself
Intel,
give yourself another quick plug, Don. Where can they find your show?
Well, if you go to the website, all one word, airplane pre-buy, and that word pre-buy is attached to airplane. It's PREBUY.com, airplaneprebuy.com. And then up in the top in the right corner, the three bars, click on that, and that'll expose all our pages, podcasts and everything.
Yeah.
And or you could just go into your Apple store or your drone store, and it'll be Airplane Intel podcast.
Cool. Well, everyone in the chat room has said what an amazing video you've sent across for us tonight, or this afternoon, I should say, Don. So thank you very much.
This is the largest general aviation company right here. Because here in the United States, we could all afford one of these.
Fair enough. I'm moving to the States.
We'll have a great weekend, Don, and like I say, keep up the good work, and we'll catch up with you soon, Don. So take care.
Okay, bye.
Cheers,
Bye,
Don. Take care. Bye-bye.
So we're going to move on then with the last segment on the show for tonight. It's been a long show. It's kind of an APG style show tonight.
It is, yeah. Good reason for that, because obviously when we're in pits, we may not be able to do a particularly long show.
Yeah. We're going to try and do it. We're going to
average
do a
out
show
over the time.
So we, as you may have known or may not know, me and Matt and actually Nev went down last weekend for a kind of a revisit to NP Simulations in London, and that's the Flight Experience London, and we'll put the details in the show notes for them. And the guys down there, Paul and Nick, very kindly allowed us to take up their time in the morning at the 737-800 fixed base simulator they got there, which is absolutely fantastic, as we said before.
We had actually been the week before.
We recorded
with
Eoin.
some footage with and Owen came to, which hence
that was such good fun.
Absolutely, and we're going to put that footage out actually when we come back from pits, because we had a little bit of a flying challenge, shall we say, to see who could land. I think it was Heathrow, wasn't it?
Just before we play that interview, I'm going to just put it out there for anyone who lives in the UK, and because it's open to anyone can just walk in off the street and have a go in this simulator. But anyone who's in the UK, either on holiday or living in the UK, to get yourselves down to East Putney in London, where the simulator is based, and it is ridiculously cheap for how much it is to have a go, and it is a completely fully Boeing licensed simulator, which you can go in and it is as real as it gets, and you can fly anywhere in the world. And obviously my first choice of place to fly was obviously the island of Malta, which I landed at.
Absolutely.
I wonder why.
But we've got that interview ready. Hopefully, if Matt's got it ready to.
Can I just say,
yes, go
from
on.
a point of view of someone who's coming from outside of London or outside of the I don't know, the Greater London area or anywhere near enough to where we are, it's really, really easy to get to. It's right next to the tube station. It was a really easy journey.
It was a really short walk, wasn't it, to the
Yeah. And not only that, but the guys there are so accommodating. They're really, really great fun. They take their job really, really seriously. They're really, really good guys. And it was just such an amazing experience when we went down there. So I highly recommend it to anyone that is even thinking about or maybe longing to go into one of these simulators.
Yeah, we'll put, like I said, the notes, the relevant kind of bits and pieces on the show notes. I'll also place a link to their website as well on our Facebook page. So if you want to go and take a look over there, I'll get that on there ASAP so you can look for yourself. But as we all said, it was a fantastic day, and we're going to play that interview for you right now. So you join us then at MP Simulations, Flight Experience London and Ground School London. I'm here with the founders, Nick Taylor and Paul Kendrick. So welcome you guys onto the Plane Talking UK podcast.
Thank you very much for having us.
And obviously thanks for allowing us to use the sim. It's been a fantastic experience for all of us. And we've also got some great footage for the show as well, which is even better. So we've got a few questions for you guys, and all about what you guys do here and stuff. So we'll go for you first. When was your passion for aviation fired up? From an early age?
Yeah, I suppose like most kids like airplanes, and we lived in Ealing, which is just a few miles from the end of the runway at Heathrow. So Concorde going over and everything, you can't help but look up, can you? But really it was my father-in-law who got me really involved when I was sort of late teens, no, probably early 20s. And he bought me some flying lessons, and then regretted it, I think, because I just fell for it, which is very strange for someone who's scared of heights. But I'm actually fine in an airplane, you'll be pleased to know. But get me up a ladder and I go all wobbly. So yeah, and it just from there I managed to get work in aviation on the ground, dispatch and operations, and then finally went through to do my commercial licence very late 90s.
Wow, so the aircraft that you're rated in, that you can go and fly now, what types of aircraft could you just walk out of here and fly straight away now?
It's been a while since I've flown, but I have a multi-engine land rating with IR, and it's commercial, and I was rated on 737 Classics, and with all the work on the sim now, I'm pretty sure I could pass the rating for NG now, but I haven't tried.
But you've flown, we've talked to you before obviously with the aircraft you've flown, and you've flown some, you've obviously flown the classic 737-200 with the old
2 and 4, yeah.
And the 4.
Yeah.
Any favourite between the two? Obviously the 4 was slightly more advanced.
Well, being a basically lazy person, obviously the 400 made life a lot easier, and the 200 I got bored. Keep having to go down the back and re-stoke the boiler. Yeah, I mean, but the 200 was a nice airplane when you came from light aircraft, GA aircraft, because it sort of was very similar, went a lot faster, but it was very similar. All the instrumentation was
steam gauges.
Yeah, it was steam gauges, all those clocks and everything in there, and it was recognisable. So it was a good step up,
So, and out of all the aircraft you've flown, is there a favourite you've kind of got? Or is it just a 73?
I had a cheeky little fly of a 767, which I absolutely adored. It was a beautiful airplane to fly. Yeah, I think that's probably the favourite.
Oh, you'd like to do that again?
I would. I would. I don't think I'll get the chance now, though. So.
Oh, but so your the licence you've got now, do you do any GA flying now?
No. I it's been two reasons. One, it's very expensive to fly in the UK,
yeah, it is.
Isn't it? Secondly, especially now with all this going on, it's time, So I think maybe when things calm down and we can take a bit of a step back in the business, which I'm hoping is going to happen at some point, then maybe I'd like to get flying again.
So, for you, Nick.
Oh well.
The fire. When did the fire start for the?
A long time ago. See, yeah, I mean, probably for me, my first sort of experience at flying was probably going on those charter holidays with your parents, and I remember it was probably back in the mid-late 70s when the likes of Britannia Airways were around. Down there, yeah. No, funnily enough, they came into my sort of into my life in one of my first jobs as well. But I think it was, I really took to flying, as I say, when I was just a kid, went on charter holidays. Funnily enough, that always seemed to be on 737s, which were Britannia's flagships at the time. And at that time, I always wanted to be a pilot. Probably ever since I was 6-7 years old. Unfortunately, that never materialised because I was short-sighted in my left eye, and in those days it was before all the marvellous laser surgery and corrective surgery that they can do now. So unfortunately, flying never became an option for me, even though I always sort of kept my fingers crossed that some marvellous medical invention would come along. So I sort of went through a period in my sort of mid to late teens when everyone's making career choices I knew I wanted to work in aviation, in civil aviation, not so much in the RAF, but it was, you know, what could I do? And no one seemed to know. Careers teachers, you know, if you wanted to be an engineer or a pilot, that was fine, or an air traffic controller, but anything else, no one seemed to have any idea. So really I thought, well, the best option was just to go in at, you know, on the bottom rung, if you want to call it that, in a job that we all see when we fly, we go on holidays. And I applied for a summer job initially as a customer service agent. Now at the time I was living in Teesside, there weren't many opportunities up there, so I applied for jobs actually at Heathrow and Gatwick. I got offered 2 jobs at Gatwick, one with British Airways and one with a handling agent called Gatwick Handling, who have long since disappeared. And ironically I actually took the Gatwick Handling job because there was a slim chance that I could be kept on after the summer, and I was, and really my career took off from there. I stayed in customer service for a little while, did a lot of work in voluntary work in our dispatch department. I eventually moved on to dispatch, management jobs in dispatch, set up, I was part of Virgin Atlantic's centralised load planning unit, set that up. And then moved to Virgin and spent 18 years there. Moved up to eventually through airport manager, regional airport manager, country manager, 2 very exciting locations, West Africa and Asia, Japan and Korea. So yeah, it all worked out well in the end. I think, you know, even to this day, I would love to have been a commercial pilot. But it just, you know, it wasn't to be. And now I've got this wonderful simulator that I can I can relive my my life on that now. But so no, I mean the industry has been good to me. It's been really good.
So you guys, we know we heard that you met together at Virgin. You worked together at Virgin here. What was that role? I mean, you know, how did you guys meet? Did you bump into each other? And
the 2 biggest drinkers in the office, I think. Yeah, yeah. We were in dispatch. We both helped with some other guys to set up their dispatch department. They decided to bring stuff in house because British Midland had been doing their dispatch at the time at Heathrow, and they were getting more and more flights. So that they thought, I assume they thought that it would be cost effective to have their own dispatch department. I think was it 13 of us that originally was there, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think originally it was about 6 of us, and we grew quite quickly.
For a couple of months it was sort of 6, and then it went up to 13. We stayed like that for a while, and then it grew even more. And we just hit it off, didn't we, quite quickly? And as I say, you know, just socialised, been mates ever since.
Yeah, and it's strange. I mean, we talk about it now. We still say, even though, you know, we then went on to do our various things. Paul went flying, and I went, you know, sort of more on the sort of head office and the management side. And I stayed with Virgin for quite a few years after. It's still we think back of it, it's probably one of the best jobs that we did. Yeah. I mean, it's if anyone is sort of out there considering a job in aviation, I could highly recommend dispatch.
I think when we talk to people and stuff on the show, and people think of an aviation job, a lot of them just think straight away pilot every time. But as you guys have said, there's more out there.
Yeah, operations and dispatch is a great job, and it's a very social job as well. I mean, obviously you're doing shifts, so you get used to people who are on your shifts and who sort of follow your pattern. So, you know, you get quite close to people and lots, especially for younger people, isn't it? I mean, when you're in the 20s or something, it's party time, it's great fun.
And there's such a wide spectrum. I mean, you're dealing with everything from the pilots to the cabin crew, to the caterers, to the cleaners, to the engineers, to the cargo guys. I mean, you are literally, and the ground staff, the customer service agents. I mean, you're literally coordinating all those teams. And so one minute you're on the flight deck discussing flight planning with the captain. The other minute you're talking to caterers because something's missing, or it's hot weather and something is on the borderline of going off. And it's such a diverse range of functions that you do. And as Paul said, that the social interaction with all those different people is great, if that's the sort of job you like. But it's, I mean, I look back very fondly on those years, both with Virgin and before as well.
Great. So we're here at MP Simulations.
Yeah.
How did this all start, where we are here in the this wonderful building with the simulator just next door there?
A drunken conversation.
Yeah, several over the years.
You'll see a theme run through this.
It's probably not far from the truth. I mean, to be honest, we'd been talking about setting something up like this, a business that involved simulators, a business that allowed us to give something back, I suppose. I mean, obviously we both have a lot of years' experience in the industry, and when you're quite passionate about something, you sort of want to give some of that back. And but at the time, we were both doing very well in our respective jobs, and it was, as Paul said, little more than a conversation after having a few drinks. And I mean, this is going back 5, 6, 7 years. And I think, as with anything, there's a trigger. And in my case, it was my last, or what eventually was my last posting with Virgin as general manager or country manager in Japan. And sadly, one of my last functions in the role was to close the route down, as Virgin decided to focus on other routes in the world. And at that time, I was coming up to having done 18 years, and I felt I'd sort of fulfilled most of the things I wanted to do in Virgin. I'd done the operational stuff, I'd done dispatch, I'd done customer service, I'd been duty manager, service delivery manager at Heathrow, all these sorts of things. And I thought, I'm a great believer in going forward in things. It's pointless going backwards. I'd been overseas for 11 years, I had my family with me, I've got 3 little ones, and I just felt it was time to, come back to the UK, and I wanted to do something different. And also I've missed my football as well, having been overseas for so long. So from my side, it was just, right, I want to, move on now, do something different. And Paul and I, again, when I was back in this country, started talking about, we spent 5, 6 years talking about it. I think Paul was in a similar position where he felt it was time for a change, and it really went from there. So what we discussed for 5, 6, 7 years, we started bringing it together, and that's really how the seeds were sown as such.
So you found the building we're in now. What did it take from there to obviously get all the changes you've made? Obviously, and obviously the kit that you've got in there, the simulator itself.
Finding the building actually was
the hardest part.
Yeah, it really was, because you get professionals in to do the job, because the building was a shell, because it's a new building. But finding it took us well over a year, didn't it? Because we need quite 4 metre height, although these are false ceilings. So the building itself has 4 metre height because of the simulators, and we needed it on the ground floor. It's quite difficult to get a simulator up 10 stories or whatever, and also because of the load, the weight of it on the floor. So it took well over a year, probably 14, 15, maybe even 16 months. We knew we wanted to be in London, because really, with sort of one exception, there's nothing like us in London. There's a few places that you can go out to, be in some hangar, on the edge of an airport somewhere or something like that, which is great, which is fine, but we knew we wanted to be in London for what we wanted to do. So that took, as I say, quite a while, and then we got some good guys in who really, Chaz and his team, who really did us proud in here, and and that took about, that wasn't, relatively speaking, we had some setbacks due to issues with the building, but that probably really took about 3 months, I suppose, all in all.
Yeah, I mean,
Christmas sort of came in the middle.
Yeah, I mean, we had actually hoped to open for Christmas just gone, but as Paul said, unfortunately, we had some delays with work outside of our control with the building, and so that never happened. But yeah, I mean, the team who did the work in here did an amazing job. You know, bearing in mind, you know, if you saw the original photographs, it is just a shell, a brick shell.
I've seen the photos on the website. I think you've got some on your Facebook page as well, of the original.
Yeah, so I mean, absolutely everything from the toilets to everything had to go in. So it wasn't just a case of putting the sim in, and that in itself, you know, obviously it's getting the access. Even it comes in 3 units, isn't it? I believe two main units. But you know, that again, that was one of the stipulations when we were looking for the property. We had to get it in the first place. So yeah, I mean, but now it's done, more or less. I mean, it's one of those projects that's sort of always ongoing, because you're always doing other things, and we're always thinking about what we need to do and what we want to do next. But in terms of where we are and the actual building, we're very pleased with it.
So where do you actually source the sim from? Is there a specialist company you have to go to?
Yeah, I mean, there's a few manufacturers throughout the world who do this sort of fixed base simulator to this quality. But we go to a place called Pacific Simulators, who are based in Christchurch in New Zealand. And Russell, the guy who runs and owns it, is a fantastic guy. He's been here the last couple of days on the servicing. And yeah, he built that up from nothing. His first simulator was a 767 just because he liked the look of them. And he sort of built it up from there, and then realised that actually so many people want 73s, and so they went over to that, and they've just started building 320s as well. But I think we can honestly say you won't get a better simulator of its type anywhere in the world. I mean, it uses, as much as it can, it uses real aircraft parts. So when you were sitting on the seats that come out of an airplane, the control column, the throttle quadrant, the rudder pedals, steering tiller, all of that, seats themselves, all out of a real airplane. So it's sort of our baby's Air Alaskan, a 7.3. So yeah, and it's about 99.5% functional as well, which is great for when we want to do training stuff, and you know.
Yeah, it is incredibly realistic from being in the simulator here, and it's fantastic what you guys have put together. Definitely, yeah.
I think that, you know, it's accepted as well now. I mean, the business that Russell's built are now selling sims to airlines, to training colleges, universities. I think even Boeing took a couple.
They sourced a couple for some of the people, you know, that they work with. So yeah, so that's how, and it is a Boeing licensed product, or not the simulator itself, but everything we do, and so we can actually advertise that, which is quite cool for us. So and we can actually call it a 737-800 when we're talking about flight experience, which is quite a bonus. Legally, we can call it that. I mean, others may call their simulator 737-800, but they shouldn't.
They should.
So what do you offer here? What sort of kind of training and courses do you guys offer here at the sim?
Well, there's two sides to our business, and when we were first looking at setting this up, and as we spoke about earlier, you know, our conversations 5 years ago, it was more about giving the public an insight into what goes on in aviation, and specifically what goes on behind the flight deck door. But as time went on, and because our background has included training at some point as well, we've both been trainers in different fields in the industry, we started thinking more about running sort of another side of the business that would be focused on training but we were looking for a niche in the market, something that hadn't really been covered by one of the big training academies. So what we actually offer, we have Flight Experience, which is it's a global brand. We have the UK license to operate Flight Experience, and that's very much about giving the general public an experience, an idea of what it's like to be a commercial pilot. And we offer various packages that enable people to do that. We also do things like corporate events, and we'll very shortly be looking to run fear of flying programs as well. Ground School London is entirely Paul and I's own creation. And what Ground School London's really all about, at the moment anyway, and we don't foresee within the next year or two that we'll move into the actual training as such environment.
We probably won't license people for a while.
But what we saw that the market needed was more preparatory training. It was something that was never there when I was young. It was, we've done a lot of research. We've spoken to schools and colleges. We've spoken to potential pilots and parents, and it's something, there seems to be nothing in the market really, especially for young people who may be making career choices. They're 15, 16, even younger, 14, 15, 16, and it's before they actually make that decision and they walk through the door of CTC or CA Oxford or start doing formal ATPL training with, say, Bristol Ground School or someone like that. So we're not competing with those guys. We're yet. This is, what we're focusing on is people who are still making decisions about what they want to do with their future. And what we wanted to do was to really make it courses that are not just heavy theoretical work, because you're going to get plenty of that once you make your mind up and you go to one of the big training academies. But what we did want to do was to obviously incorporate a lot of the theoretical material in a more in an easier fashion, but to also apply a lot of practical sessions to bring it to life, I suppose. And that's what we can do with the simulator.
I mean, basically we've made a modular course. It covers most subjects that you'll find in a CPL or an ATPL, but obviously we don't go into the depth, in depth like that. And each module, you will then go into the simulator and say, well, we were talking about this, that, or the other, or now you can see it in action. And so people can, they'll get handbooks and stuff so they can study, and then they'll see it in action, and hopefully that will reinforce what we've spoken about in the classroom. And also it's a bit more fun than just sitting in the classroom. So as Nick says, our courses are basically preparatory, and we call them the foundation courses. So either for youngsters who are getting ready to go out into the big world, or even people who are already out there, and decided on a career change or something. We've got sort of different courses aimed at different sort of age groups, and to go and do a 0 to ATPL now is sort of £100,000+. So for a fraction of that, you can come in here and make sure, firstly, it's what you want to do. Secondly, you feel you can do it. And thirdly, you're going to enjoy it. Because once you then make that big financial and time commitment to do it in real life, you don't want to be backing off part way through, do you? So that's, as Nick says, that's where we felt that we could come in now, and hopefully later on we'll do MCC courses and jet orientation, and then maybe build up to to other stuff as well. But that's what we're going to focus on at the moment. We also do things like accident and investigation, accident and incident little course, looking at some accidents that have happened over the years or incidents, and again utilising the simulator, and letting people see what happened, why it happened, and then let's go in and see if we can do it a bit differently and have a different outcome.
I think, like you guys said, the preparatory thing is really important.
Yeah.
That is very. I mean, if you can go for someone who's thinking of going to CTC to get the license and go through and become a commercial pilot, to come here and get the kind of basics and the lead up to where they're going to eventually be is important. I think it saves a lot of time as well. If you can walk into somewhere like CTC with the information that you guys can give here. I think that's a brilliant idea.
Yeah, and I mean, we'll part especially, more specifically, I suppose, for the schools and college program that we run. We'll throw in some advice as well on careers. We're not careers advisors, but what we have a team of ambassadors who are guys who have day jobs who are still flying. We've guys who are pilots with BA, pilots with Virgin. Some are still flying, as I say. Some are retired, but we'll bring them in to talk to the students. To give them some idea of what options are out there, because there's multi channels to go into flying, and I think people tend to get a bit confused about what's available, how much is it going to cost, can I do it? Am I clever enough to do it? I mean, a lot of people sort of say, I'd love to be a pilot, but I'm not clever enough. Well,
look at me, I mean.
Look at Paul, yeah. Well, Paul said it anyway. But
you were thinking it.
I was thinking it. So yeah, it's to give some help and guidance as well. As I say, we're not careers advisors, but we'll do our best. And that is something going right back to your earlier question, it's something we are quite passionate about, because we didn't have that much help in getting into the industry, because no one had the knowledge, and now we've got goodness knows how many years between us. We're now able to give something back, and if at the same time we can make it enjoyable and engaging, and an interesting thing as well, we've over the last 2 or 3 weeks we've been having discussions with Kingston University in London, who are neighbours just at the Roehampton site.
They've got a big aeronautical engineering campus, haven't they?
Yeah,
quite impressive around there.
Yeah. So not only can we add the practical sessions with the simulator, they also have some great kit down there, wind tunnels and things. So on our modules that, for instance, with the sort of the theory of flight, we can hold practical sessions there using the wind tunnel to show students actually, why aeroplanes fly, and so we're always looking at ways that are engaging. So you're not just sitting in a classroom, thinking, oh my God, this is heavy stuff, because that's not what we want to do. And it's we don't want to put people off. I mean, if anything, both of us think it's an amazing profession or industry. Whatever you do, it's a great industry to be in. So the last thing we want to do is put people off. What we want to do is make it engaging.
So future plans for you guys here at the MP Simulations. We've seen a little room just around, or big room just around the corner there, with the letters A320.
Well, we here like to think that we've got something for everyone. So if you can't really fly, you can go in an Airbus, can't you?
Yeah, exactly.
So, if all you're any good at is a Nintendo thing or Xbox, then you will have a 320. Yeah, that's it. You'll be able to fly easily enough. Obviously, the two big manufacturers out there are Airbus and Boeing. So it seems sensible to have one of each. Obviously, there's certain constraints. Lead times on the simulators and money always comes in, but we're hopeful to have a 320 sim the end of the year if we're lucky, or possibly the first quarter of next year. And we're also looking at getting sort of an open cockpit 737, which we can take to trade shows and pilot career shows and stuff like that, which I think we're looking at getting earlier, and that will be in the other big space that's out there. And from then on, the world's our lobster, isn't it?
Yeah. It is. Yeah, I mean the 320 is, it always was our intention to get one of each. And it's interesting. I mean, we get a lot of pilots walking in. It seems an amazing number of pilots live around here, and I think some of them just like to chat. But it's interesting. It's almost split between sort of Boeing, Airbus, and the Airbus guys obviously come in and see the 320 and say, "Oh, you know, you're getting an Airbus." So yeah, we're quite excited about that. But as Paul rightly said, I think we've just got to, you know. We had hoped the end of this year, but the lead times on these bits of kit are, you know, unbelievable. I mean, you know, our 7.3 sim, we waited over a year in the end, wasn't it? I think almost.
Just under.
Just under, yeah.
So we've obviously got to save the pocket money as well.
Yeah, we got I think £17.80 towards it at the moment, so we're well on the way.
Yeah, they're not cheap bits of kit either. No. But so yeah, I mean that's sort of from an equipment point of view, and obviously we want to really set about growing both sides of the business. I think probably Ground School London is something that, I mean, Paul and I are passionate about. Mm-hmm. Flight Experience has been, you know, as I mentioned earlier, it's a global brand. Of which we've acquired the license, so we've got quite a bit of support with that as well, and that's, you know, Flight Experience has been on the go for over 10 years. It's in 12-13 countries now globally, and as Paul mentioned earlier, you know, it is the only Boeing officially licensed product of its kind. There's a lot of simulator entertainment businesses. Although obviously we're not just entertainment, we have the other side, but it is the only one that, you know, has been stamped, and it's not an easy accreditation to get either. So, you know, the simulator is just part of it, but it's the training of the pilots, it's the customer service, it's the whole package that is stamped by Boeing.
I mean, all our standard operating procedures are Boeing basically. So when we train our instructors, they are trained on SOPs that most airlines who fly Boeings would recognise.
One of the questions that we always ask anyone we interview on the show is about dream aircraft you'd like to fly, an iconic aircraft, something retired or still flying, that if you were given the chance now to nip down to Heathrow or Gatwick or an airfield and hop in, what would you, one or two aircraft it could be, that you'd like to fly?
Shall I go for it? Mm-hmm. I'm not much for military aircraft. I'm a very much civil aviation, and I think I'd love to have a go at a 777. I think they're beautiful airplanes. I've only travelled on one once actually, I think, and it was a fantastic flight. And but having said what I've just said, I would dearly love to fly a Spitfire and strafe the mother-in-law.
I did see an advert actually in one of the flight publications a few days ago that you can actually, there is a company in the UK that you can have a flight in the Spitfire. I think it's about $2,500 for half an hour.
Yeah, I've seen that. So.
Yeah, but folks, over the white
much more reasonable.
So Nick.
Yeah, I'm the same as Paul actually. I'm not a big one for military. But actually, my choice is sort of appeared in both camps, I suppose, but was initially on civil aviation, would be the VC-10. Yeah, it's a beautiful looking aeroplane, and it was sort of there or thereabouts when I was very young. I was going to say growing up, but I didn't want to sort of...
So the BOAC days?
Yeah, sort of, yeah. When I was very young, very, very young. And the DC-10. And the reason for that is when I did my first flying, or first job in aviation at Gatwick, it was in the sort of the last few years or last year or two of BCAL, British Caledonian. And I always remember seeing the old DC-10s out there, and they're just impressive looking aeroplanes. So they would be my two anyway.
Good choices, guys. Well done.
Yeah.
So before we wrap up, then, how can the listeners of the show find out more about you guys here?
Yeah, well, depending on which side they're interested in, I would say anyone who wants to has a passion and really wants to see what it's like to fly realistically a Boeing 737 and hopefully by the end of the year or 320. They can go to our Flight Experience London website, which is london.flightexperience.com. If it's something that they want to look at in a little bit more detail, or it could be they're looking to follow as a career, or in the early days.
Or we do an enthusiast course as well. So if you like flight simming at home and but you want to just learn a bit more, so as you can do it sort of maybe a little bit more properly, if you know what I mean, then that would also be on the ground school website.
And that's easy enough to find. That's groundschoollondon.com. So and on there you'll find all the information on the courses, contact numbers, contact emails, or for either, just pick the phone up and give us a call.
The number is 0203 004 0616. I'm pretty sure.
we'll put the links. We'll put the links on the show notes for the episode. Don't panic, guys, with all the relevant email addresses and stuff. So I'm going to say a massive thank you to both of you for allowing us to come and see you here and see the sim, which has been fantastic. I can't recommend it enough to all the listeners who are living in the UK, or if you're coming across here on a holiday, get yourselves down here and have a go on the sim. It is an amazing experience, and I'm definitely going to be putting my orders in for Christmas this year. So on behalf of the Plane Talking UK podcast, thanks guys, and all the best for the future.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Wow. We had a fantastic time here, didn't we, Matt?
We certainly did. Absolutely incredible. And second time when we went to actually take the interviews, Nev came along as well, and he had a bit of he had a go in the sim as well. Unfortunately, we haven't got the footage from
but we hopefully
that yet,
we'll have some footage of Nev in the sim. We'll probably get that played at some point in the near future. But massive thanks again to the guys, Paul and Nick at MP Simulations as well for taking the time to
absolutely
look after us.
Indeed. Now, in a couple of weeks' time, we've got some more footage that we're going to play out that was a little thing involving myself, Carlos, and Eoin, and we all did the same airport, same landing, and we're going to play that out in a couple of weeks' time, so the week after the show that we do when we're at Pitt, with regard to our you can see for real and hear for real how we got on. But yes, and during that show we have a very big announcement that involves our 200th episode that will be taking place on the 20th of January, Saturday the 20th of January. So
it's going to be epic news.
It's epic news. So
epic
please,
news.
whatever you do, save that date in your phone, in your diary, in your calendar now. That is Saturday the 20th of January 2018. Obviously a big announcement coming in 2 weeks' time,
so keep your ears and eyes open for that. We'll obviously let you know when we're going to put that out in the episode, but it is going to be epic news, so you need to be listening.
Indeed. Anyway, it's time to wrap up, boys and girls, because as big aviation fans will know, that there's another little show called The Airline Pilot Guy, who is waiting
they're waiting
in the wings for us to stop dribbling on.
We should do a handover. Yeah.
Stream it live on absolutely.
It's been a hugely long show, so thanks to everyone who stuck with us in the chat room tonight. I know it's been a very long show. Matt's got a little bit of editing to do this weekend. Just a small amount. We're going to say a massive thanks to our on the spot guest host tonight, Eoin. Thanks, Eoin, for joining us tonight.
I am fine, by the way. Sorry about earlier. I just had to step out for a minute, but I am fine. Everything's all fine.
Really?
Thank you very much for
call the ambulance and everything.
I'm really grateful for the concern, but I am absolutely fine.
Oh, hello to Cheryl Drakey, I think that's your name, Cheryl. Hello in the chat room, a new listener, finally got a show live.
Excellent. Just as it comes to an end. So AV Geeks, the
Airline Pilot
Guy is about to finish. I feel I should say that coming up after the break, it's time to hand over live to Captain Jeff and the Airline Pilot Guy. Stay tuned for more info.
Right. Yes, and actually, yes, for those in the chat room, Jeff Ward has just put. Jeff, anyone who's a patron of the show will have had a little email.
They will have had a little
in their
email.
inbox.
Yeah,
so if you're a
absolutely.
Patreon, you're listening to the show right now, check your inboxes because you will have received, while we were playing that segment, a little email from me and Matt.
I heard it here first type thing.
Heard it
thank
here
you
first
from us for being Patreon donators. So that's it. That's where we're going to wrap up episode number 163. It has been an epic show. It will be a shorter show next week, but it will, however, be live from Pittsburgh. We haven't quite decided whether it's Friday or Sunday, so please make sure that you follow our social media feeds in order to find out when the live show is taking place. But we will be doing a live show from Pittsburgh. Eoin, thanks very much again for stepping in at such short notice to get me out of a muddle. And from all of us here in the studio, it is time to say goodbye. Goodbye!
Take care, everyone. Have a great weekend.